people have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Now, there's one thing you might have noticed I don't complain about. Politicians.
Governments don't live together, people live together. Governments, you don't always get a fair word or a fair fight. Well, I've come here to give you either one, or get either one from you.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up,
T-minus 1 minute.
live out the true meaning of its creed.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
T-minus 50 seconds.
I am paying for this microphone, Mr.
Every dollar released from taxation
T-minus 40 seconds.
that is spent or invested will help create a new job.
Chivalry is dead, and women killed it.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines.
T-minus 20 seconds.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing ground and in the streets.
10, 9,
We shall fight
8,
in the hills.
6,
We shall never surrender!
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi, welcome to Problem Solver Politics live stream this beautiful, lovely, gorgeous Tuesday evening. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with none other than Cody the Oracle.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
And wow, what a week. We have a ton to talk about. This is actually going to be a really, really fun live stream. I'm super excited to get it kicked off. We've had some really cool events in Yang World. First off, obviously, we're going to be discussing and analyzing much more in depth. I swear it feels like a week ago, but within the past 36 hours, Andrew Yang released his climate change proposal that we started analyzing two videos ago that has all kinds of intriguing ideas. And also there was a really good interview on the Nerds for Yang channel.
Of course.
All right. Shout out to the Nerds for Yang. I loved the last 30% of that interview. The last 30% of that interview, especially when Andrew Yang talked about what he has learned while running for president, especially in regards to the media and the media conglomerates and how corrupt they are. Oh man, that was like music to my ears. It was sonic pornography. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying.
It was an ear orgasm. I loved it. Okay.
Hold on though, really quickly.
It's like that ASMR that you always watch before you go to bed at night.
Yeah, you know me. I'm a big fan of that stuff. Something we brought before. As someone who follows so closely the campaign of Andrew Yang,
okay,
and so kind of like aware of like the kind of subtleties of it, why is it you insist on wearing a tie when you speak about the tieless one, Andrew Yang?
Dude, I have been getting trashed in some of these comments. You actually beat me to the punch. And I was going to do this gag. I actually went to the same guy that made our hats. Oh, P.S. The Problem Solver Politics hats are in Thursday at 9 a.m. So we're probably going to do a really sick live stream in which we give out hats to, whoever super chats us or whatever. But we've got Problem Solver Politics hats for y'all. The merch is officially in. It finally got here once everything was finally approved and the technical difficulties were worked out. It's awesome. So anyway, I went to that same embroiderer and I said, dude, I got to get some kind of tie. So I was thinking about Make America Google Andrew Yang a MAGA tie.
Can you fit that many words on a tie, though?
Look, I'm going to design it. And one day when y'all be dogging
I'm just saying
on the great one with the tie, who is talking about the great one with no tie, then, I'll just I'll tease it because people think I have a tie on and they'll go like, oh, but what about this tie? And everybody will say, what? And it'll be pretty sick. And we'll go, whoa. And it'll be pretty awesome.
Is this the kind of tie you'd use as let me pull it up. Sorry, 1 second. Is this the kind of tie you'd be looking at, I guess, to fit it on there? I mean, you need something close to this, right? To fit all those words on a tie?
Well, if it goes sideways. But not lengthwise. I'm not trying to write in prose here.
But are they going to turn their head and read it? Like, oh, what does your tie say? What does your tie ever sideways?
You know what? We'll put it out to the audience.
Vote in the chat. Let us know if you would buy a Problem Solver Politics tie, roughly the same dimensions as this one, slightly different pattern. It's a little bit interesting.
I don't know if anybody else would buy it.
But
actually, I don't even know if I want to ask that question if somebody would buy that tie because it would probably be such a resounding no in our audience that it would just be embarrassing me. Whoa, did you get a super chat already?
Well, not only do we, it's really an important question. They want to know what'd you get from Panda, Cardin?
Oh, how could you tell? I turned my logo around. Oh, there's the smaller logo.
No, who else just sells giant red cups like that? Come on.
Oh, what did I get from Panda? Okay,
come on.
I got to admit,
Beijing beef and orange chicken with the chow mein.
No, I got the chef special today, which was, I believe, the walnut shrimp.
The chef special at Panda.
Well, they don't charge you an extra $1.25 for it when it's the chef special. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And the walnut shrimp is usually $1.25 extra. So I'm a slut for the orange chicken. I got the orange chicken, and yes, no, it's not authentic Asian cuisine. Yes, I know it was made by the founders in Hawaii because they wanted to, not pander, but they wanted to cater to the Polynesian dark meat sentiment or whatever. I've read the whole entire little flyer at Panda Express on the history of orange chicken. Okay, but I did get the orange chicken. I got the chef special shrimp. I used to get half chow mein, half fried rice, but now I just get all chow mein.
That's the logical conclusion. When you do half and half, it's like, why not just get the better one and get all of it?
So was that is that a boomer meal too? Is that boomer? Is Panda Express boomer?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I'm curious now. What meal is not boomer?
It's a good question.
Where am I allowed to go besides
actually, it's a good question.
An organic food truck? Okay, that's not boomer.
Food trucks, what's it called? The Whole Foods food bar. That's not boomer.
Whole Foods food bar. That is so boomer. That is like Gen X. I'm trying to be hip. I've reached a midlife crisis, and I think by eating organically and spending $15 on a shake, that I'm somehow hipper and cooler.
See, immediately when presented with new ideas, immediately it is confronted and going, nope, they're wrong. They don't get it.
No, I'm just saying that
I'm just saying they're wrong and they don't get it. Oh wait, really? Matthew Dominguez, Super Chat. David Packman said he'd have you guys on his show.
Are you toying with me, Matthew Dominguez?
He must be, because we have right over here the biggest fan of the gentleman.
Yeah.
I think he watches every one of his videos, and he comments every time.
Actually, you know what?
Personally, I think it's cool what he's doing. I'm always happy to see other people on YouTube having success. That's personally my opinion. But Cardin, you.
Yeah, what I would be intrigued to do is actually I'd enjoy speaking with him in Spanish, in Castellano.
That could be a really interesting show. Actually, two people who are just fully ingrained in American politics because, people speak Spanish all over the world. So that's like a pretty interesting thing.
And I would really like to, besides his wrong-headed politics, I'd love to talk about. No, I'm just kidding.
Editorializing immediately. It's immediate editorializing.
No, I speak with hyperbole. I would actually
one
really.
more super chat, by the way.
Okay, let me finish my Deepakman thing,
yeah.
and we'll jump in. Was that Stephen Lin? I recognize the icon. Yes, awesome. I would actually really enjoy talking with David Pakman about a couple of things. First off, his family's Argentinian history. I think that's intriguing. I'd be curious how fluent he is because I'm not sure exactly at what age he came and whether or not English was his second language. Obviously, he's completely fluent in American in that regard. I'd be curious like what his growing up was because I know his family is of Jewish but also of Argentinian heritage, and there's really interesting history there. So I would be super intrigued to talk with him about that because his family would have lived through the military junta of Argentinian history, which is not a World War II reference, but a pretty solid 1980s.
It's the other one.
It's the other one reference. So I would be intrigued to talk about that, and then also what it's like being a liberal radio host, because generally, talk radio is kind of because conservatives have jobs. Is totally just kidding. Is it's not a bastion of liberal talk. It's really one of the few mediums. It's the only medium that is actually dominated by conservatives. So it must have been an uphill battle for him in order for him to still get his success. And I got a lot of respect for people that kind of go against the grain on things like that. So I'd be really curious to see what it was like for him being a leftist radio host. And maintaining, he's kind of got like an 8-year-old media mini empire right now. Respectable. I think
it's really cool. People having success doing this. So you want to read the next few super
Stephen
chats
Lin, yes. So Met Panda founder, once at Irvine Spectrum, smart dude, rock on. He must
that
have been
would be where he'd be
old.
hanging out. Irvine Spectrum Center is nice, man.
Really, rock on.
They've been developing that for like years ago. And then, Matt Dominguez.
I met the CEO of Supercuts once.
Wow. Matt Dominguez today super chatted stream like 3 times to see. Dude, first of all, shout out, thank you, man, and we'll have to reach out to him and see what's up, guys.
Yeah, I'd do that.
Shell shot, $2 super chat. What's your take on Bernie attacking Andrew's UBI plan? Did you see that particular video, Cardin, that's been passed around? There's like multiple that I'm going around. It's like a latest one I saw just.
You mean the one where basically he trashed on UBI, saying it's not as good as the federal jobs guarantee?
I got a better idea. The classic Bernie. No, I got a better idea. It's like, so why is that one bad though? Like maybe they're both good, and you think yours is better, but
just remember that whenever he says, "Oh, I got a better idea," he's not about to rehearse an idea, because an idea insinuates something new. I believe in most of the traditional nomenclature. And I believe the regular colloquial response to the term idea insinuates it's something new and something fresh. When Bernie Sanders says, "No, I have an idea," he's really just about to quote Frederick Engels. For Frederick Engels, what you're looking at me like, Frederick Engels? Is this not ringing a bell? Is this way boomer? Frederick Engels is the one who funded Karl Marx and wrote a lot of the communist papers against.
Precisely where the reaction comes from, actually. Dude, Bernie, you could say what you want about Bernie Sanders, say what you like about him, what you don't like about him.
I don't like the federal jobs guarantee.
Okay, but
it's
I don't
a pipe dream for those that believe it. And second off, it would wildly damage the economy because it relies upon his idea of a $15 minimum wage, where honestly, from an economic standpoint,
you know what, though? That's a better approach.
Thinking the federal a $15 federal jobs program with a mandatory $15 an hour minimum wage would do anything other than absolutely destroy our economy. It's akin to flat earthers, like still believing, despite all the science against it, that a federal jobs program with a $15. Dude, the science of what minimum wage does to an economy is it's settled science.
Have you seen any independently released photos that prove the Earth isn't flat? Have you seen any?
You know what, bro? I technically have not seen any third-party studies proving that the Earth is round, other than my personal travels around that Earth
Hey,
in a Boeing 757.
Could be an optical illusion, man.
So, yeah, unless I'm really getting fooled by that matrix.
Have you ever personally been to the top of Mount Everest to see the curvature of the Earth before?
No, but I have seen it on the Bonneville salt flats. You can see it next to my college.
It's just so flat. You can see so far.
No, the Bonneville salt flats is one of the few places on Earth where it's so flat you can see. So flat for so far. Because you also have to have flatness for a certain amount of distance. And you know where they have Bonneville. You know what the Bonneville salt flats are, right? Are you aware? Whenever you see a music video of somebody
Where
literally...
are they at?
Bonneville, Utah, which is east of the Great Salt Lake. It's where the Great Salt Lake used to be until it just dried up and became this big salt. It's the salt flats. It's literally you can lick the ground.
Oh, is that where the stones move? Or is that the desert?
You mean where the stones move?
They're stones. It appears they move on their own, but really it's because when it rains, like a little bit of water comes.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised, but there's no real stones. There's nothing but literally salt flats in the Bonneville salt flats for like 100 square miles. So oftentimes whenever you see music videos of the wind blowing some ethereal looking person and their dress going out 1,500 yards behind them, and there's literally nothing until the sky hits the ground behind them. That's usually off of the I-15, not the I-15, the I-80 in the Bonneville salt flats.
Sorry, Chris Flores. I want to get your take on this card. And
Okay.
He said, are most flat earthers usually Bernie bros?
Are most flat earth is usually Bernie
What is
bros?
your take on that? Do you think so?
You know, I have actually watched videos of flat earthers, and what's interesting is how eclectic and eccentric the group is. And there's actually some wildly intelligent people in that group, which would surprise you because you think that they could wrap they're not just a bunch of dummies. Like one of these guys literally like designs helicopters or something for a living. Like he's a straight up engineer, and you'd think as an engineer, like this whole, pi r squared equaling the area inside of a circle and things like volume, travel distance, geometry would just really click with him. But no, and they all definitely have this, can't prove it, man. No, I got my story and I'm sticking with it.
Okay, so
it's kind of cool, actually.
sorry, chat, but we're going to move off flat Earth, and we're going to move towards, before we get onto anything else, someone mentioned it in the chat already. I want to highlight it and show you guys right here. A poll just came out from Emerson, I believe, in the last 24 hours or so. And it actually moves Andrew Yang above 2% nationally overall through all the polls because he hit a 4% on the Emerson poll. And
You're talking about the one done in Colorado, right?
Yeah. And also, I wonder, hold on, was that, I believe, if that Emerson poll's qualifying and Tulsi hasn't hit it before, it should also double as a qualifying poll for her, and I don't see anyone else on this list.
Well, the interesting thing is,
So interesting for future debates, perhaps.
Yeah, I was chatting with one of the leaders of the Denver Yang Gang.
Oh, they
this
mean like
week.
the city, just Denver in general.
Yeah, Denver in general. And those people have been working hard, man. You go on the Facebook group of the Denver, Colorado Yang Gang, and they're straight up meeting for like a little get together. It looks like almost like they're having a little barbecue, and then going out and just saying, okay, we're going to knock all the doors in this street. And they are hitting it hard. And it's actually a thing of beauty. I've always thought grassroots activism was always beautiful, even for opponents of political ideas that I've had. It's just really good to see people come together and fight for something that they believe in on a volunteer basis. And I get a really positive vibe from the Denver, Colorado Yang Gang. And I know one of their proud accomplishments was they're like, hey, we had a lot to do with this fact that Andrew Yang is getting that 4% in the Emerson poll. So shout out to the Denver, Colorado Yang Gang. And also, we got a great donation from the Yang Gang up in Oregon. Another big shout out to the Oregon Yang Gang.
Actually, I believe he told me on Twitter he would like to be here but couldn't tonight. So I'll let him know another time. But thank you, man.
Yeah. So anyway, if you haven't checked them out, hey, check out the Denver, Colorado Yang Gang and the Oregon Yang Gang. They're doing a lot of work up there, and it's actually it's a beautiful thing to watch and to check out.
Well, actually, Cardin, one thing we'll get to this later, guys. But I want to show you something right now, Cardin, and we'll get through to the to Yang's appearance on Nerds for Yang, and then we'll also get to the policy thing. But I wanted to show you something that came up the other day. There was a poll done very recently. I believe it was the Monmouth poll. But look at this. I want you to take a look at these results.
Okay.
And you'll notice, realistically, and someone mentioned this, they're like, oh, Yang's almost tied with some. I'm like, realistically, I look at it as there's the 2 to 8% bracket and the 19 to 20. You know what I mean? Like, there's two solid, clear, defined tiers here.
Okay, yeah.
And this is the latest national poll. And this is one thing that's interesting, though, because it says there's a virtual 3-way tie. Well, Warren and Sanders are different enough, but they do have some similarities as far as, like, you really are kind of more at that point candidate than strictly ideas. They have a lot of similar ideas, different takes, but similar ideas in some ways. And then Biden, I still maintain, I don't think Biden's going to make it till the end of this.
Yeah,
He's
you
gonna be
can't
out.
call it a 3-way tie. If you're running a marathon, which an election is, the guy that breaks out early but then is running out of gas and has hit the wall, just because there's a moment of time when the faster runners behind him have finally caught up, doesn't mean that all of a sudden he's going to be able to compete and run with them. I'm sorry, he's going down, and he doesn't have the juice to kick it into high gear with the younger, faster, smarter, and more hateful candidates. I mean, honestly, they hate him. Like, Kamala will trash him if she has to get votes. I believe there's another super chat from Thomas Person. Hey, good to see you again, brother. No Steyer, have more dollars. It must be working.
Giving him a ban. And then one more from John Leong. On the topic of climate betterment, Tesla Model 3 versus a hybrid such as a Lexus ES300H, which is better and which one would you rather drive?
Ooh, we actually did a video on this.
Yeah, no, but they're both hybrids. As far as what's better, I don't know what's better as far as climate goes. I'd probably rather drive the hybrid. To be frank, I'd rather drive a hybrid. So I picked that. Even though Tesla's slicker, I'd rather go hybrid. I think the jury's out a little bit though, which is 100% better. I think it becomes a little bit more of where is your focus as far as emissions caused by vehicles and where do you want to channel it? I think they both have pluses and minuses, I guess, but I'd rather drive the hybrid always. Back to you.
Well, yeah, and also Cody's in a much more different situation. Like, for example, if I have a house with some property in which I could park multiple vehicles and I could afford to have just an electric Tesla, especially considering the fact that I am converting my entire household. We're in the process right now of switching to an entire Vivint solar system that is going to power 125% of the energy needs of my home. And I am anticipating the upgrade to an electrical vehicle that will kind of consume that extra 25% within a couple of years now. So for me, a guy whose radius is going to be within the LA basin where there's a lot of chargers, then I would like to actually have strictly an electric vehicle. And then I would actually keep my big gas guzzling truck that can hold a lot of weight and tow things for when I want to go to the lake or go camping or things like that. But I would drastically be limiting its use because of my electric car. Now, if I were like Cody and I had an apartment where I was allotted one parking spot for the apartment, well, then you got to have the hybrid. Because if you want to go on that road trip, you're not going to make it from California to Las Vegas, Nevada on one charge. All right. And you don't have to be sitting on the side of the road charging for 4 hours just to make it to your hotel room. You would rely upon that hybrid energy. So it really kind of depends on what situation you're in, but I love where the car technology is going. And Andrew Yang in his climate plan talked about some of the most important things we need to do in order to get to a clean energy position is actually having public-private partnerships and investing in the ingenuity of the American mind in order to give us cleaner climate options, just like Elon Musk did with the Tesla. Okay, now, yes, there's arguments about the profitability of Tesla and so on and so forth. But, I mean, when the coolest, hippest electric car that you have out there came from just entrepreneurial imagination, that's a pretty solid argument about Andrew Yang's view on climate change and fixing it. Okay, next super chat. Let's hit it. NBC said another qualifying poll comes out tomorrow.
Yes, with Shayna Owens, 2 super chat. Thank you.
Did they shut off the microphone of the people asking about Andrew Yang?
No, but NBC, well, I don't know if they're doing it. Just someone's doing it, right? So that's it. It's worth noting because Tom Steyer, I believe if Steyer hits that, if it's before the deadline, it would break the debate into 2 nights. That is worth noting, guys. Next.
Okay.
Jacob Wild, $2 donation. Yang may have told too much with his sulfur O2 plan. In a few minutes, we'll get further into it. We'll go over that more, but that is a good point, man. It's a very good point.
Okay.
Heidi Briones.
Hey, what's up,
420. What would I have to do to get on your show?
Heidi, you can. Heidi, I think distance is the only thing that separates us, I believe. Because Heidi, you are you on the East Coast? I know Alyssa Monet Mason.
And then one more. Shell Shot, $2. Thoughts on Andrews moving to higher ground? Again, dude, we will get to that very soon, and we'll give up.
That's a very, very good question.
It's actually a good segue, right?
It's a very good segue. I would just say go back and watch our first look at Andrew Yang's climate change video. And we actually specifically mentioned how Cody thought he was speaking kind of metaphorically at the beginning.
That's the short answer, yeah. Like, I guess the short answer from us is, when he first said it, I actually did think it was more metaphorically, like we need to, elevate people to higher ground, move people to and I didn't know he meant it so literally, but then a lot of people told me, oh no, straight up, that's literal. He means that exactly. So we're looking more. Here we go. You know what? Without further ado, give us about a minute here to get everything dialed in, and we're just going to go through the whole thing with you guys. It's very long, so we'll go through the whole thing with you guys, talk about it. So
yeah, it's actually pretty awesome. And Heidi Briones, dude, come on the show anytime, girlfriend. Let's rock and roll. We'll do this thing.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's the short answer, right?
Yeah,
so,
just DM us, man. We don't know where you're at. So anyway, yes. Are we ready to just jump on into the whole climate change thing? Because there was a lot of that I really loved. Or do you want to do the Nerds for Yang interview first?
I guess Nerds for Yang first, because that's a much shorter topic. We can get through that a lot. This is a huge thing, heap of pros. So we can probably News for Yang in a few minutes.
Okay, let's bust it out. We'll just do it. We'll bust it out.
So sorry, guys. I got you. You got to wait now to hear that. But anyway, so I guess let's get your take first, Carden. What did you think about the Nerds for Yang interview with Andrew Yang?
At first, it was just kind of typical Nerds for Yang stuff. Very personality driven by the host of Nerds for Yang. And a lot of it was kind of just like cute questions and other stuff like that. But I really, really enjoyed it. In the last third of the interview, they actually said, what are some of the things you've learned? Like, what has changed your mind? Like, what has opened your eyes in this process of actually running for office, right? And I loved it when Andrew Yang, he said two things very, very interesting to me. The first one was he said he was amazed at how much his view of the media changed. And he had actually said specifically the media conglomerates. And he said that previously he'd kind of always thought that they just report the news and it's kind of their job and they make it flashy and cool. But, they're just reporting the news and what happens. And, when Donald Trump says fake news or whatever, that, he's just, blowharding. But then he said, no, they really are corrupt and they actually do have their fingers on the scale and they are basically cheating the system, much like he said on the H3 interview. But he went into a slightly better depth in the Nerds for Yang interview. And that was such a relief for me, especially somebody in the media. I've been saying this for years. And what blows people's minds is my favorite thing about the Trump presidency has nothing to do with any of his policies or his personality even. It's that fourth branch of government is finally being put in a check and balance system. Because the founding fathers, when they founded the United States of America, they believed in three branches of government. But in many of their writings, they actually mentioned the fourth branch of government, the invisible branch, which would be the media, or what they called the press back then. And they believed that the press's job would be to keep in moral check all these different three branches of government, so much so that they called the press the fourth branch of government. And our press, since the advent of the television, has basically controlled the conversation. If they didn't like you, they just plain old won't give you screen time. If they dislike you, then they'll give you screen time and then just chop up and edit horribly however you respond, manipulating what you say, giving headlines that don't explain themselves until the last line. All of it legal, but all of it biased and pure spin. I mean, George Bush, whether you love him or hate him, it says a lot that he finally, his last 2 years of his presidency, had to have a policy where he would only do live interviews because his interviews were taped, were cut up and edited to such a degree to make him look so much more buffoonish than he even really was.
How did that, as far as, I mean, I don't know if you have the numbers on this or not, but I just wonder, be curious to see, I wonder like, what would a graph look like of like, oh, he was getting interviewed like this, and then it just went like boom, like no one's gonna like. That's crazy because like I would have to imagine that oh no, we can't do that because exactly your point. They want to make him look bad, and you can't do that in live interviews easily.
Yeah, and it was so interesting because Andrew Yang said, to be honest with you, I thought MSNBC would like me a lot with this, idea of $1,000 for everybody per month. But he says I actually have gotten fairer treatment from Fox News than I have MSNBC. Because they just don't want me. I'm not their guy. And I was actually very relieved. And this was it was almost a beautiful moment in the Nerds for Yang interview where he said, you want to know what? And this is why I really love Andrew Yang. This is just me. I'll admit. I fanboy over his emotional intelligence. I know that's a very weird word to like, and it's an intangible, it's not a policy. But Gary Vee said in this new technological world, that's Gary Vaynerchuk, I believe is his name, the new commodity that's going to be of worth is somebody's emotional intelligence. And he said, when asked, what would you say to all the Trump supporters? He would say, actually, I kind of understand you. He said, I get a lot of the strains of thought of Republicans and libertarians and independents. And he says, to a certain extent, I have a very large libertarian streak in me. I have a very large independent streak in me. And that's why I'm willing to listen to these people and understand them. And I would have them in my cabinet and counseling me. And I look at that and I think, finally somebody who I actually believe when they say, I'm going to work across the aisle, they'll actually do it. Barack Obama was famous, and I had so much hope for him when he said, we're not the red America and the blue America. We're the red, white, and blue America, and I'm going to work across the aisle. Nobody's better poised to do it. And I thought, wow, you got a half white, half black president. It's going to be this awesome, great, kumbaya, liberal, let's all get together and sing and hug each other and just forget all of our past economic and socioeconomic woes. And no, it ended up being the most divisive presidency in 20 years. So when I see Andrew Yang saying these things about how, I want to work with everybody and I'm open to new ideas, I actually believe him. And I think it takes a lot of bravery for a Democrat to come out and say, I see where a lot of these Trump supporters were coming from. I see where a lot of Republicans think. And he even went so far as to say, some of my smartest friends are very smart and open-minded Republicans. And I thought, wow, that is so cool that you've got a guy who can say, some of my best friends are very smart Republicans. It's like, that is a bipartisan character. Like, that is somebody I can get behind, and I believe that when it's time to fix our bipartisan problems, such as 40% of our jobs going away to automation, okay, such as climate change and the need to have a good conservation-minded attitude towards our environment, oh man, I could really get behind that, and I believe him. That's the other thing is, like, I actually believe him when he talks. So anyway, keep going. That was, I veered verbose. I do apologize. That's hilarious. I see a chat here from Holistic Hottie. I think Gary Vee is or would be Yang Gang.
Well, speaking of chat, 2-hour super chat from our friend Alyssa Money Mason, fan of the show. Said, I've loved Gary Vaynerchuk for years. Yang Gary V. There you go.
Gosh, if somebody in the chat has a link to that small clip where he talks about emotional intelligence being the great skill set of the 21st century. Oh, man.
Well, someone had a great comment up here. I forgot. I feel bad. I'll try to find it. But they said, so the first time they saw Yang, they're like, who let an empath someone with empathy run for president?
Yeah.
It's a good point, right? Because, yeah, most of the time you're not seeing that. I feel bad. Whoever it is, let me know. I feel bad. It's a good point, though. So I want to make sure I shout you out.
Yeah, word.
Anyway, so Arden, are you ready to move on to
what?
It's worse than you think. Lower emissions, higher ground.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Hey, dive right in, bro. Dive right in.
Well, okay. You know me. The way I like to do these things, because he has a kind of more long form portion at the top. I like to get to what he's actually talking about. We actually already covered this in a video, so I'm just going to really quickly skim over this 5-point plan, and then we'll move through and get more in depth. So if you guys do want to see more about what we think exactly on these 5 points, we have a video. I'll link in the description, or link in the chat. But really quickly, I'm just going to run through. So anyway, this is what Andrew Yang is actually planning. Oh, let me get this dialed in so you guys can see it correctly. Very good. So again, it's a 5-prong plan. First prong will be build a sustainable economy by transitioning away from fossil fuels to upgrading infrastructure and improving the way we farm and use land. Public financing options will allow individuals to make the right decisions for their families. We need to read more into that to get more of that. Anyway, build a sustainable world. That's very lofty goal. The United States, throughout history, has led the world in times of crisis. We're the most entrepreneurial country in the history of the world. It's time to activate the American imagination and work ethic to provide the innovation and technology that will power the rest of the world. Very good. Here's the one someone actually asked us about. Move our people to higher ground. Natural disasters and other effects of climate change are already causing damage and death. We need to adapt our country to this new reality. Okay. Reverse the damage we've done already. Our research needs to be done on removing carbon from our atmosphere. I like the idea of addressing, like, well, if there's any damage done to the climate, we did it in the last 100 years too. Let's look at that. Cooling the planet and rejuvenating ecosystems. And then hold future administrations accountable. We need to pass a constitutional amendment that creates a duty on the federal and state governments to be stewards for the environment. Cardin, really quickly, what do you think about that?
Okay, so I like a lot of these. You're talking about the first 5 principles.
Yes, 5 prongs.
And there's, first off, I'll start out by saying, okay, this is great. It was very general, very well-rounded. My only criticism was, build a sustainable economy. That's kind of like a coach getting out in front of his basketball team and saying, okay, guys, we just need to win. And we need to win by doing winning moves.
Play defense.
Go do winning moves. Yeah.
Play defense.
Play defense.
We need to play hard defense. We need to keep our heads in the game. It's like, oh, thanks. I didn't know that.
Oftentimes, I'd say 50% of the text on the page didn't need to be there because there weren't specifics. And I love Andrew Yang because he's got oftentimes so many specifics. He's got over 120 specific proposals now to fix problems in our society with our government. And I would have liked to almost see him only mess around with specifics.
Well, I don't know if anyone actually edited this for if anyone edited it for length. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably edited for grammar, but I don't think anyone was like, oh, you know what, Andrew? I think you can more effectively say this if you cut.
Yeah.
It seems like, hey, Andrew's writing his thing, let him write it. Which
yeah,
he's
like,
running for president.
I would have instead of saying building a sustainable economy by transitioning away from fossil fuels to renewable energy, upgrading our infrastructure and improving the way we farm and use land, I would have liked him to say, okay, with energy, 40% still comes from coal. 20% of that is replaceable in the next 10 years. We would need this much money in order to do this. Divert funding from this and then get this. That's how we can switch out of coal specifically over the next 20 years. If you could just sell me on that one, I think you're already years ahead of the Green New Deal and years ahead of anything Bernie Sanders, Kirsten Gillibrand, John Delaney, or anybody else is putting out there.
Hold on, really quickly. It's a little aside for you guys. I asked Cardin this question. He struggled. Chat, let me know. We'll give you the answer in a few minutes here. Who is, of everybody running for president in 2020, the third most independently wealthy? So, it's a little aside. The winner gets points. The points don't matter.
Wait, who's the most independently wealthy or the third most independently
wealthy? Third most independently wealthy.
Of everybody that's running for president or everybody that's running for president on the Democratic side?
President in general.
Well, first is obviously probably going to have to be Donald Trump.
Want a big hint? According to Forbes, so if you guys want to Google it.
So does it go Trump, Steyer? Steyer's a bazillionaire. Is he number 2?
That's 1 and that's 2.
Okay,
number
that's
3
1
is
and
my
2.
favorite.
And then the third...
Let's see if anyone in chat can get it. So we'll come back to this in 1 minute. We'll revisit in a minute.
Okay.
Spoilers. But here, Cardin, do you want to move down? And really quickly, we'll go over the timeline, and I'll check chat. So if you want to read over the timeline portion of this, I'll go to chat, and then I'll see what's going on.
Okay, cool. So hold on.
No, it's no problem. So basically, I'll give a general overview of what's going on. This is one thing I actually liked a lot about this plan. A lot of people start talking about crazy years when they're talking about change. They start talking about single-digit years or 10 or 11. I like the realism from Yang, who's like, first of all, if we want to do something drastic and make a complete green economy, it's probably going to take 20 plus years. It's not going to happen in 5 or 9. So I appreciated that. I also appreciated the way that there was a goal at the end of it, and then there's a kind of step-by-step guide. You can actually see an infographic right here. This is how we achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And I think it's really refreshing to see a candidate have a goal to aim for in the future. If you notice, outside of his term, this is beyond him. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I love this also because I remember when Donald Trump had posted the 16 judges that he would consider appointing to the Supreme Court if he were elected. Super early, giving a specific policy proposal, and all of a sudden the media, the vloggers had something to chew over and mull over and digest. It put him in the news cycle early. It actually showed he understood to conservatives what a conservative was, because there was a lot of people that just doubted that he was even a conservative, so on and so forth. To me, this giving out of his climate change proposal in a detailed way with infographics is very wise politically, and it shows that he's starting to get the game. Just like Donald Trump released his judges list, he's releasing his climate change list, which I think is awesome. You got a super chat.
Not a super chat, but I want to give a shout out in the chat to JL. He was technically the first person to respond. It is John Delaney. For anyone who didn't know, he's the third most independently wealthy person running for president currently this year. It does go, it goes Trump.
Well, because he got wealthy with all of the healthcare money.
I found out it was John Delaney. I was like, him? Really? How did he get rich? But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And also, like I said, JL was the very first person to get it. But then immediately after, we saw, looks like Filthy, Kevin Mom, Hung Tran, others. So shout out to everyone who got John Delaney. In general, man, shout out to John Delaney, right? So anyway, back to you, Card.
Yeah, so, well, and it's interesting, he's got to be worth a lot. We looked up his personal wealth.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah,
John
isn't
Delaney.
he worth like 300 million
like that,
or 400 million?
Something like that.
Yeah, he's definitely a wealthy guy. So anyway, back to Andrew Yang's proposal. It did veer verbose, which is fine because we're in a live stream. I did like how he said, though, climate change is big and it's scary. It's destabilizing the world and it's costing American lives, but it's also a massive opportunity. I like that, how he turns around and he says, yes, this is negative. But see, I was the area sales manager for Orkin Pest Control. I used to always say, every time somebody brings up a concern about pesticides as an opportunity to make our company look great. You know what I'm saying? And if you got the right answer to a valid concern that people have, then you have an opportunity to look like a hero in their eyes instead of look like a villain. And America has a chance to become a hero on the world stage of climate change if we can just do it right. And nationalizing our economy a la 1930s, Weimar Republic, World War II reference. Did you like that?
Take a drink, everyone.
Take
a drink, everyone. He did it.
Is not the answer. But entrepreneurial ingenuity, I believe, is. So anyway, we'll go over that first infographic. I thought it was interesting. He posted some very specific goals within 2-year increments, which I thought was great.
2 to 3, and then 5, and then further.
Yeah, I should have said as small as 2-year intervals. So goal number 1, achieve net zero emissions goals by 2049, which is kind of cool. I mean, that's, I'm going to be about 60 by then. So by my retirement age, very lofty goal, but I like it. Establish net zero standards for new buildings. Now, I know this is lost on some people, but the Green New Deal wanted all buildings. This one says new buildings. As somebody that works in construction and understands all the nuances of permits, of building codes, of thises and that's, I appreciate that he actually made that delineation. By 2027, new nuclear reactors begin to come online. Yes, if we started right away, it still takes about 2 or 3 years to build one of these things and make sure that they're all environmentally and economically sound and so on and so forth. So we would need to start right away if we're going to have any of these up and running by 2027. And establishing net zero standards for new buildings is so good because there's actually technology now that is amazing. The new homes that they're building with elastomeric paint over stucco with McCoke structuring and they're seismically more sound. They have better floor plans. You can breathe in them. They're more ergonomic. They've got all the surround sound already built in with the super cool, like automated everything. And they take up 1/3 the energy to cool and to heat as all of the previous homes did. Yes, just like cars are getting so much better, home technology is getting better, and we need to incentivize better buildings so we're using up less electricity. Somebody brought up a great point in the YouTube comments before that besides regulating how we make energy, we also need to restrict how much we need to use. Our efficiency as human beings in a society needs to increase, and what better way to make them more efficient than by improving how we build our buildings. So third one is zero emission standards for all new cars.
1 second, before we move on, I thought it was an interesting point from the chat. I wanted to think about that.
Yeah.
I believe it was Calbear that brought it up. Oh, man. Yes, Calbear brought it up. He said that it would be very difficult. It is impossible, but very difficult for them to get all these nuclear plants up by 2027. Just the NIMBYism would delay, or basically the not in my backyard. Or people just saying, like, there would be red tape holdup. And I wonder that That's one of the things that I get. You have to use years, right? But you almost feel like I'd rather there be like ranges, because this could take 10, could take 20, right? Like people could say, no, I'm not building a nuclear plant. Not in my family.
I'll
not
tell
in my
you,
backyard, right?
you're not going to have that NIMBYism in South Dakota. They're ready. They want to rock and roll. If you tried to do it in California,
how much do you know about South Dakota?
There's a lot. I have tons of friends that graduated in petroleum science, and like 40% of them have jobs now in South and North Dakota.
Oh, fascinating. No.
It's because of all the fracking and the oil shale. But anyway, while we're shutting them down because we live in leftist California, they're shutting down San Onofre. I think it's like this year or last year or maybe next year, but within the past or future 6 months, San Onofre is going to be just completely shut down. So out here, we're shutting them down when we should be actually building them up. So yeah, I don't see this happening anytime soon within 10 years. But in other places that are more open-minded, and it's kind of hilarious to almost say that the red states would be more open-minded to nuclear energy. You know what I'm saying? But we traditionally kind of view the term open-minded, no pun intended, open mind, our YouTube fan.
Well, no, because...
but we kind of view that as like a leftist liberal thing from the 80s. But I really think there's a lot of states like Florida, I think would be a great place to have some nuclear power plants. And I think legislatively they could get it through. I think I could see that being very popular in the Midwest, especially off the Mississippi, where you have enough water to actually cool these plants. And especially if there are new plants like thorium. Another trick that technology is catching up with is you used to have the power plants very, very close to urban centers. And that's where NIMBYism catches up with you, because NIMBY literally means not in my backyard. Well, as we create conduits and transformers and electricity propagation matter that can function more efficiently, we can actually have the power plants further away from civilization, which makes it so it's no longer in your backyard, but kind of like in your
county-ish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point,
you know, because like, for example, if we had a nuclear power plant in between Agua Dulce and Palmdale, 10 miles from anywhere that anybody could see, nobody would have as big a problem with it as if it were literally, 6 miles up the road.
But for larger population centers, how large do they have to be to actually power it correctly, you think?
Well, they used to have to be massive, but thorium reactors can also be a lot smaller. In fact, I believe a thorium power plant can be built in a spot. Don't quote me on this. In fact, I'd love to see if the chat could just fact check this really fast. I do believe you only need about 3 to 3.5 acres in order to build a modern nuclear thorium reactor. Whereas when you look at like 3 Mile Island, you even look at the San Onofre plant, you look at some other nuclear power plants like the one north of Manhattan, they're these behemoth facilities. Whereas with thorium reactors, you could actually have them be much smaller and have a lot of little power plants instead of one big massive mega plant. So anyway, by 2030 you want zero emission standards for all new cars. Awesome. 100% emissions free electric grid. Okay. Once again, I assume that he's referencing in quite heavily coal here. During the Obama administration, there was a big push towards clean coal, which we basically just know it isn't really possible. No matter what it is, there's going to be coal ash, and coal ash has drastic effects on the environment and needs to be considered. So I like the idea that we're just switching off of burning dead dinosaurs that have mummified into chunks that need to be dug out of the ground. I like the idea of not burning petrified dinosaur goop, and instead.
Well, did you see the Indian hitman's comment on that?
No, hit it. Hit me with the hitman.
This is a guy. Sorry, this made me laugh, so I'm bringing it up. He said the Chad thorium versus the virgin uranium.
All right.
You ever seen that meme?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, isn't that just the thing? What you're saying?
No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I get it. Rock on.
I thought it was funny. Sorry, made me laugh.
I'm feeling you. No, I get it. So anyway,
the Boomerang Garden.
The Boomerang Garden.
Now someone said anyone call boomers boomerangs?
No, but I did subscribe to the new YouTube channel, Boomers for Yang.
You would.
It had like 35 people on it, and it's this lady that gets up and she talks about why she likes Andrew Yang every day, and it was so adorable. I was like, click, I love this.
Oh, it's really cool, actually. Let me see if I can pull it up so people can see.
Yeah, so anyway, by 2035, 100% emissions-free electric grid, which is actually kind of cool. I don't like the term 100% emissions-free because For example, let's just say you put up solar panels and it's producing electricity. People will say, oh, that's emission free. Well, there was emissions used in manufacturing the solar panels that I really think should be considered. So I don't, to me, that's just marketing more than anything, but I like the idea. Net zero for all transportation sectors, 85% methane recapture. Okay, this is really cool. We have 2 greenhouse gases that we really worry about. And just tell me in the chat if I'm going into too much detail here, because I don't want to make this a National Geographic episode. Okay. But we have 2 different types of greenhouse gases that predominate our argument about greenhouse gases. And these are gases that happen to retain heat worse than others. Most of our atmosphere is about 70% nitrogen. Okay. In fact, when you see street racers going out to race using nitrous oxide is actually NO2, I believe, or N2, I can't remember. But when a car is taking in a bunch of air, it's taking in only about 10% oxygen. And if all of a sudden you have N2O, which is nitrous oxide, or nitro, as they call it in Fast and the Furious, you're replacing a 10% oxygen-rich airstream with a 33.33% rich oxygen airstream. And it makes it so that when the suck, squeeze, boom, bang of an internal combustion engine is breathing, it's breathing more oxygen, thus combusting more oxygen, thus producing more power with the same amount of air, gasoline, and metal. You increase the efficiency of an engine just by literally having it intake nitro instead of intaking the air that we breathe around us. All right. So since the air that we breathe around us is mostly 70% nitrogen, the rest of it is the carbon dioxide, the methane, the oxygen we breathe, so on and so forth. And 2 of these gases have a tendency to retain heat. Methane, which is, the exhaust of cows when we fart, or sorry, humans when we fart, also cows when they fart, which was the big joke about the Green New Deal. And also, unfortunately, a lot of the discharge of rot. Methane is what we try and control when civil engineers actually have landfills rotting. If you ever drive by a landfill in Florida, if you see a hill in Florida, it's a landfill that's been covered up with grass, and there's always this pipe on the top that's burning off the extra methane. Okay. So we control methane, which has a tendency to retain, I believe it's 8 times the amount of heat as regular air, and carbon dioxide, which has a tendency to retain, I think, 2 or 3 times the amount as regular air, resulting in what is called the greenhouse effect, greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. So if we can reduce our amount of carbon emissions, awesome. But if we can really reduce the amount of methane that we both get rid of by hopefully consuming less meat, that's a huge vegan argument. You know what I'm saying? The amount of methane that is produced by agricultural, like bovine farms and stuff like that, is insane. But being able to recapture it, okay, and convert it would also be a huge step forward. So that's interesting. I'd like to see more details on his methane recapture policies. And then 2049, I don't even know what this means. A fully green economy. I mean, what's a green economy?
Well,
no receipts achieved. Allowed at stores.
Mission accomplished. I think that's another. I think it's.
Oh, then let's call it mission accomplished, because fully green economy,
okay, why
like
not?
you could always go greener. Like, honestly, if you had an economy,
you could always go greener.
Well, think about it. We could say, like, we outlaw receipts, no paper receipts. Like, if we had reached a point where we literally had net zero standards for new buildings, all nuclear energy, zero emission in cars, 100% emission free electric grid, if we had everything you want to do, but we're still printing receipts out, we could say there's one step more we have to go. So to say fully green economy, I don't know.
So the government took my bags, took my straws, and I was taking my. I can't have anything anymore.
But see, that's what I'm saying.
There's no record of me any.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is, look, we're an independent channel here. We're not like the others, all right, that fanboy all the time. We give independent analysis. Our job is the media.
Well, speaking of...
Cowherd said it well.
Before we back to Colin Cowherd, my favorite. Anyway, we have a couple super chats. Thanks for the support, guys.
Oh, yeah,
Matthew Dominguez, $2. We need to stop the cows from farting. I don't know if you got to that one yet, but honestly...
Good luck. They have 8 stomachs, bro.
What if you could, right? What if you could? Might be a good compromise. And then Shane Owens. They found if you feed cows the seaweed, it nulls the methane inside of them. The only holdup is the seaweed is an additional cost the farmers don't want. Ooh. Because seriously, if that is an issue, and that's one of the big issues with these large cattle farms, like, yeah, what if we did find a way to like have the methane emitted from cows be greatly reduced without getting rid of cows? Wouldn't
Who was
that be
that
pretty
gave
cool?
the super chat?
Would that be? And please tell me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Shayna Owens.
You know what? That'd be so interesting. I wonder if Shanna Owens lives nearby Los Angeles. If she did, that would be actually a great video to do because we have, do you know what is off the coast of San Pedro? Right by where the whale
Seaweed?
watching. Yeah, no, a seaweed farm, a kelp farm.
Oh, yeah, they're from kelp.
Yeah, kelp is used in
Well, ever
toothpaste.
ate seaweed?
Have I ever eaten seaweed? Yes, I've eaten those dried seaweed chips that they sell for like $8 a package.
No, they're imported.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Oh, you don't like seaweed? Like
It was very salty.
So do you ever eat sushi?
Yes, I like it in sushi, but not the just straight up seaweed chips. I
know,
really
but I
did
mean,
not
I'm just
enjoy.
saying it's. But as you brought up, it's expensive, so that might be why farmers are holding off feeding all of their cows.
Yeah, but I mean, for heaven's
in
sakes,
seaweed.
if we're still subsidizing all kinds of crazy ethanol subsidies, I'm sorry, Iowa people out there, we need your help with Andrew Yang. Yes,
Fun question, next when you're ready.
But we're subsidizing so much crap that no longer needs to be subsidized. That if we did a transition to some of these other good ideas, if not just to prove that they work, I am all for it. I mean, I am all for it. So anyway, let's keep going. Next super chat.
Well, this is from Stefan Geidel, I believe. He said, yo, what is the best place to put my Yang sticky notes? Cardin, you first. Where do you think is the best place to put a Yang sticker? Or something
Like on the
that?
bus or what?
The bus, you think? Okay.
Well, no, best place to put Yang sticky notes. You know what's interesting is I thought about doing an informal poll, you and I, on the on-ramps to the 405 and the 101 and the 5 freeway, just to have like a honk if you're going to vote for Trump, honk if you're going to vote for, not Andrew Yang yet because he's not number one in the polls, but like honk if you're going to vote for Joe Biden or whatever.
Yeah,
and
Elizabeth Warren, I guess.
Or yeah, Elizabeth Warren, just kind of counting the number of honks that we can get in a minute, right? And then just finally saying like honk if you're going to Google Andrew Yang or something like that.
Hold up. So do you think like then like a good spot would be kind of like what do they call it? Like
wherever
the
homeless people
where
are.
the crosswalk is? Why?
Because, dude, homeless guys know where the cars are going to stop long enough that they can get some attention.
Oh, that's a good point.
And they can actually, kind of get their cash and have people read their sign. I would literally just straight up figure out where the homeless people are.
Is that the best way to reach like your fellows, the boomers? Because that is where he is lacking the most. Where do you think for the oldest audience you can get the most effect?
Well,
with the
he's
sticker like
lacking
that?
with African Americans. We know that from the 538 article.
But across races, it's older people. So like, where do you think he can reach them?
Well, gosh, unfortunately, I don't think he has the money yet. Broadcast media.
No. I'm just saying, if you had like a sticker to put somewhere to support Andrew Yang, where would you put it to target an older audience? Where do you think it'd be?
Boomers. Gosh, you
Like
want to know
like
what?
wine bars or younger people at wine bars?
I was thinking,
no,
dude, at a car wash, man.
Who
pays to get their cars washed? People that have enough money to pay to get their cars washed, but they're not millionaires yet.
And millennials.
Yeah, in fact, I would
I'm a millennial, right? But I just know young people like me typically don't like washing their own car. There's some of them, it's almost like not an option, where it's like, oh, I have to get my car washed. It's like, oh, what do you mean? I have to take it somewhere and get it washed? Like, I have to. No, I do.
Well, that's because you're one of those wealthy, young.
No, that's the funny thing. It's like you can't afford it, and people do it anyway. I'm just saying that. So I wondered then if that's almost like something unique to older people, is they still wash their own cars. But that's a good point, though. Also, I like because I feel like older people generally are the kind of people who will wash their car 3 times a week. Like to me, it sounds crazy, but some people like, you know what I mean. So there we go.
Old people are still into the old forms, and they're all the very expensive forms of getting information.
Somebody said a buffet.
The mailers, the everything. What'd you say? Oh, at a buffet.
Yeah,
oh, that'd be
someone said
hilarious.
buffet, okay.
Go to Reno, Nevada, and just say you'll sponsor a plate. You know what I'm saying? And then, holy smoke, you'll get every old person. Like, just go to the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, and you're going to get old people extraordinary. Of course, that might be beyond boomer. That's going to be like the silent generation, I'm 101 years old, and I'm still playing blackjack. I still got enough, movement in this arm to be hitting that button. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, barbershops and salons? That's interesting as well.
Yes, interesting. I'm liking this.
Like I said, a place where you can leave a sticker and someone will just see it later, right?
Yeah.
So volume travel. I think it's the fun. Sorry, I know it's got us off track though, but I thought it was kind of a fun question. But
yeah.
Back to climate change though, and Andrew Yang.
Yeah, this was crazy. The budget overview. Do you want to go over the budget overview? How much he says direct spend?
Please go ahead. Man.
Dude, these numbers freak me out. I'll be honest. only because they're so large, and I want to know where is he getting it from. I don't have a problem with the UBI. In fact, I view it as a great moral step forward, a spiritual step forward, and an economic step forward that is capitalism where everybody starts from 1,000 instead of capitalism where everybody starts from 0. Not socialism, it's capitalism where everybody starts from 1,000. But that's because Andrew Yang's very vocal about, I want this $1,000 a month for every citizen that will be paid for with a VAT tax on the robots. Okay? This budget overview has a whole lot of numbers where it says 400 billion invested. And unfortunately, whenever the government says 400 billion invested, that's a euphemism for $400 billion taxed from taxpayers, small businesses, and the 85% of America that is already living paycheck to paycheck and can't afford a $500 emergency in their lives. Over 80% of America cannot afford a $500 emergency in their lives. So you better be very fiscally responsible with me telling me how you're going to pay.
Well, remember, over 20 years.
Okay, still, but we're looking at 400 billion,
over
10 billion, 200 billion, 50 billion, 250 billion, 80.8 billion.
I can break the suspense. It totals 4.87 trillion in 20 years.
And what's our GDP?
Hold on, though. I believe Bernie Sanders came out with a plan that was going to cost considerably more.
Bernie Sanders' plan would cost $23 trillion in his first 4 years of the presidency in 2016.
Hold on. The only reason I brought that up, I want to highlight, that's the thing about this plan from Andrew Yang I appreciate the most. The sense of like, look, it's not something we can do in the next. It's not something we could do in 2 presidential terms when I'm in office. It's going to take like a generation, and we have to be behind it. Even though there's some things I don't agree with all of it, I think the notion that, look, guys, because everyone running is like, oh, I could have this done in 2 terms. That's why you should elect me. But Andrew Yang's being a little bit more reasonable and says, I'm not going to be able to do this in 2 presidential terms. Like, this will take our country a couple decades. And I don't know. That to me is refreshing. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, here's some interesting things that I did like in this. 400 billion invested in democracy dollars over 20 years. I like the idea of democracy dollars. So please tell me how you're going to pay for it, Andrew. Then I'll be behind this. 10 billion invested in debt forgiveness fund for rural co-ops. To be honest with you, I don't know enough about rural co-ops. So I have yet to dive into this information. So I am unbiased. 200 billion invested in grid modernization over 15 years. I'm okay with that as long as it's grid modernization that actually helps the little guy and the middle class and the families. For example, all the time we say, oh, we want to modernize X, Y, or Z thing. So we're going to put $20 million into, for example, building up infrastructure, aka a new baseball stadium in our town.
Well, and 19 million hand that money to a private company to do X.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is if they put aside $20 million to build a stadium and 19 million of it goes to the company that's cronyist with the person that approves the building project coming out of, Illinois, well, then that rich guy's getting rich and that firm's getting rich, and only $1 million of that 20 million is actually trickling down to the local economy with, at best, a short-term result that's not going to last a long time. I just don't see it worth giving $20 million of taxpayers' money if it's 19 out of 20 of it is just going to go to a big, fat, wealthy firm and not really have much of a trickle-down effect. Trickle-down economics works, okay, but it's not foolproof. So if you're going to specifically budget taxpayer dollars, I mean, these need to be perceived as sacred funds. And you need to convince me that of the $200 billion invested in grid modernization over 15 years, that's not just going to get Edison rich, that's not just going to get Vivint Solar executives rich, that's not just going to get Solyndra 2.0 rich. Okay? Hit it, Cody.
Sorry, really quickly, I wanted to shout out a couple super chats.
Yeah.
Number one, we had Steve Irwin, $2 super chat. No comment. Thank you, Steve.
What's up, Steve? Thanks. He makes good comments in the feed. I've seen him.
Is that the Steve? No, I'm just kidding. And then $2 super chat from Matthew Dominguez. How much money would you spend saving the planet? That's one of those questions where I feel like is interesting because depending on when you get asked that, very different answers, right? 20 years from now, everything's the same. Like, I don't know. 20 years from now, things are drastically worse. I would have spent every dollar. It's one of those things where I feel like if we actually felt the gravity of this is happening now, people probably would spend almost all of it But if there's still that apprehension of, do we really know? Can we?
Okay.
That's what I think.
Matthew is a salesman at heart, and I'll tell you why. When the Kirby vacuum person comes to your floor and he wants to sell you on the Kirby vacuum, some of the most aggressive salesmen, literally, they told this to my wife. They said, oh, you don't want to listen to our pitch? You're too busy? Well, are you too busy for your children's health? You know what I'm saying? And then they end up giving you the whole pitch that you're a bad mother that's going to give your kids, an allergy to dust mites if you don't buy my Kirby vacuum cleaner. All right. And it's a totally emotionally manipulative pitch that is inherently a false argument. Okay. But it sounds great and it gets the salesman in the door, and the guys that can manipulate it do it. So Matthew Dominguez, you're a heck of a salesman. All right. But the only reason why it's a false argument is, how much money would you spend in order to heal the environment? You want to know, if I were a millionaire, I would do exactly what that millionaire in Texas did that bought the 28 acres of blighted land that had been stripped by cow herds and was actually a big flood zone. And then just by planting grass, he'd managed to rebuild the ecology of the area, and the aquifers filled up, and he literally turned it in this beautiful paradise. There was this whole entire National Geographic video done on how this man had turned, I believe it was 2,800 acres into a paradise just by planting grass. And if any of you have ever read the Jean Giano book or seen the short movie called The Man Who Planted Trees, if I were a millionaire, I could easily see myself becoming the man who planted trees. So if I had money to spend, yeah, you best believe I would spend it as much as I could, doing as much as I could to heal the environment that I had control over. But there is a difference between a citizen voluntarily spending his money on a passion project based out of a moral duty to his environment, and a government putting a gun to forcing you to pay this duty tax.
Hold on, though. What about,
and saying we're going to spend the money on your behalf and then wasting it on a bureaucracy?
Wait. What if it's done like war bonds? What would you say then? If the government said, "Hey, come with us, help us invest in this," then once we get this under control, you will then, receive your dividend.
Actually, funding environmentalist projects that were public-private partnerships with a bond system, I actually find very intriguing, and I would want to know more.
No, I want to get back to your answer on this. Just before I forget, $5 super chat from the Steve Irwin saying, my uncle worked as a contractor at an Air Force base where they just gave away $500 welding hoods. There's a ton of spending like that in our military. I just thought it was relevant to what you were talking about.
He took the words right out of my mouth, because besides funding environmentalist projects with a bond measure, just like war bonds, something I have spoken about many times, especially in the early episodes of this show. I haven't done it in a while, but we need to restructure the way we spend all money away from fund accounting. How many times have we seen bureaucrats spend $50,000 on machinery that they didn't need, or giving away those $500 welding helmets because they know that they're allotted $10,000 a year for welding equipment, and if they don't use it, they lose it? Okay? So all the time the military is buying excessive amounts of something that it doesn't need just so it can exhaust its budget that 3-year cycle, so it doesn't lose that budget the next year cycle. I would like to see this. And I think this is a way to actually pay for reparations, limited reparations. Okay. I'm not quite Ta-Nehisi Coates on this, but I agree with a lot of what the ADOS, the American Slaves, and a lot of arguments that they have made, especially in terms of extending statutes of limitations. And so reparations should actually be another video that we do for a different day. That's a very interesting and intriguing topic. But I do believe that there are certain pet projects that need to have an air of volunteerism to them. And if there are some really good projects that are environmentalist projects, I would like to see the military be put under a fund spending format in which they say, okay, here's your $10,000 a year. But instead of saying we're going to use it or lose it, if you find a way to make it so that you don't have to buy 10 grand worth of computers, and you can make the computers you have last longer, and then we will divert the excess funds. Or if you only use $6,000 of your $10,000, the extra $4,000 is going to go into the environmentalist fund, or it's going to go into the reparations fund, or it's going to go into the Clean Up the Bay fund, or it's going to go into whatever great project that our society needs fund, or it's going to go back into the UBI fund. You know, we could fund so much if instead of putting these bureaucrats in a difficult use it or lose it position, we put them in a position of, hey, look, we trust you as a steward of the public's money. You have a $10,000 budget this year for technology, a $15,000 budget this year for food, a $600,000 budget this year for transportation. But if you can find ways to save money from these budgets, instead of us punishing you for your goodwill and restricting your budget the next year, we're actually going to divert those funds to the UBI budget. We're going to divert those funds to the catastrophic patients budget. We're going to divert those funds to the 9/11 first responders budget. We're going to divert those funds to the environmentalist replanting of all the forests that we deforested in the late 1800s budget. That's how I think military budget could be spent more usefully, not by restricting it. Making our military weaker is not a good idea. We need peace through strength.
How about this, though? Someone brought this up, and they said if you took 1% of the U.S. military budget, you could do a lot with that, right?
Yes.
Now, to your point, do you think you can run the U.S. military 1% more efficient financially and get the money that way of efficiency? Well, I want to show you. Maybe I honestly, for the life of me, can't read this number. That is what 1% of the U.S. military's budget is for 1 year. So,
693. You just wrote 693 trillion, not billion, bro.
Oh well.
Or wait, no, you did do it right. Oh crap! There's too many zeros. You're right. That's wigging out my face.
Yeah, may as well. Anyway, that big ass number. That is how much if we were in the U.S. If we were able to get bureaucracy dialed in 1% more efficient financially. So I do think that's a good point to bring up. That it's not even like I think a lot of times people get absolutes. Like, well, what are we gonna do? Just change how everything works? It's like, well, maybe if we get it 1% better, that's actually a lot of money to spend on things. I think that's a good point.
Yes, exactly. So I think there are restrictions to be made. But
sorry. Before I forget, 2 super chats.
Oh yeah, hit it.
One $2 super chat from Steve Irwin. Also, I love your content. Thank you for it. Thank you very much, Steve. And
thanks a lot, Steve.
$2 from Tyracha. Everything is going digital into your phone. That's a good point. And
in many ways, that's an improvement. Yes.
And we just got 15 from, I believe, Troy Perron. Yang Gang support $. Great work, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, brother. Troy Perron. Do you have any family in Argentina? That's the big question, man. I met a couple of Perrons, but not a huge prominent family. It's not like some of the others, but there's a rich history there. I wonder if it's just by marriage or if it's by heritage. That's pretty cool. Thanks a lot, Troy. You're a stud. Thanks for the support. So anyway, as we were saying, I definitely think, man, it's not just the military though, bro. I mean, everything from...
Just for example, I mean, like if you take one, it's one of the higher sinks of money, but you just take one thing the government spends a lot of money on and make it run 1% more efficiently. And then you look at what that means as far as cash. Could mean is cash on hand over the course of a year. I mean, obviously you'd save up annually. And look, if they did it like that, what I'm saying is you don't have to overhaul everything and make everything 80% more efficient. 5 could be a lot of money.
And this is one of the things I actually liked about sequestration was just this idea that you have to survive off 5% less. Well, you want to know what? The average American family, when in California, we hit $5 a gallon for gasoline, which happens here. Okay. That dad's not coming home with a 40% increase in his pay. That mom's not coming home with a 40% increase in her pay. The kids aren't coming home with a 40% increase in their part-time jobs, and they have to learn to do with 5% less because the cost of gasoline went up. Okay. If our government actually had to do that, I am a big time huge fan. So I think that yes, a VAT tax is going to be able to pay for a lot. And a value added tax, I think, is a smart consumption tax based way of gleaning income necessary to run our government. But for heaven's sakes, when you're in a place like California where once you make over $250,000, they glean 54.3% of your income, it's gotten absurd. If the government is taking 6 out of every $10 you make, it's no longer a free market economy. Okay. So we need to get our taxation under control, which means we also need to get our spending under control. And I really think Andrew Yang has the emotional intelligence to help do that, but he hasn't ever been on the receiving end of unions yet. And this is a question that I had put in the feed for Nerds for Yang. If they ever do another interview or they're ever talking with a campaign advisor, one of my biggest questions I have about the UBI with Andrew Yang is I say, okay, look, you want to shrink the welfare state with UBI? I agree with that. Utah did it. They got rid of their entire homeless bureaucracy just by saying we're going to give money straight to the homeless guys. Get rid of the middleman. We're going to allot the money and then just divide it up amongst the homeless guys. No questions asked. Well, you just displaced 400 bureaucrats who, guess what, are also unionized and angry.
Federal job unions are on a joke, man. Like,
yeah,
those are
federal
really strong.
jobs unions are like one step away from Bugsy Malone in the 1930s.
Okay, maybe
all
not
right?
that far, but like they are very strong unions as far as unions go for the most part.
Yeah, no, actually watch the very first Miracle on 34th Street, and it's hilarious because before the AFL-CIO had combined, it was really funny. In the first Miracle on 34th Street, that's the original black and white, filmed in what, the late 30s, early 40s?
Probably about there.
Yeah, what happened was a guy comes up and he says, oh, so you think that's a really good idea, huh? Yeah, well, wait until the AFL hears about that. Yeah, wait until the CIO hears about that. You still think you're going to be able to run for governor? You know what I'm saying?
47, actually.
Oh, 1947. Okay, awesome. So you look at the first Miracle on 34th Street, and even back in 1947, there were characters in scripted American movies telling judges, I don't think that's a good idea because the government employees union is going to be pissed about it and you won't be able to get reelected. How unpopular will Andrew Yang's UBI be if all of a sudden he displaces thousands of government employee unions, unionized members, because their services are no longer necessary because we've created universal basic income, aka the freedom dividend? What do you do as a Democrat when all of a sudden Democrat union bosses are pissed at you?
It's a good point. So I'm trying to pull up that quote.
Part of the reason why I love following the Andrew Yang campaign is because it's great seeing a Democrat having to fight against the establishment propaganda arm of these media conglomerates, and then finally coming to the realization, coming to Jesus and realizing, holy crap, the conservatives were right. Our media is corrupt. Look what they're doing to my campaign. Look what they're doing to me. Now, I love that he fights. He's not going underdog about this. He's pulling himself up by the bootstraps, getting those polling numbers, getting those donations. I love that. He's fighting back. But the fact that he's wise enough to recognize that it's actually happening is a beautiful thing to watch as somebody who's coming from the right side of the aisle on many of these issues, because you think, sweet, finally somebody is realizing the fight that we've been fighting over here for 30 years. So I think it's going to be interesting in the Yang presidency to see someone who all of a sudden is going to have to go against the unions that are by and large generally perceived as Democrat strongholds. Keep going.
Well, no, I just think it's interesting. I just thought this would be fun to show everyone. I think I found the clip you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
Tell me if this looks familiar to you or not.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Right by the coat hanger. This is going to work.
Let's run it.
Now you got the CIO and the AFL against you. Now you got the CIO and the AFL against you.
Yeah, awesome. See?
There we go.
That's what I'm talking right there. So Andrew Yang.
Hold on. Sorry. Oh, my God. Sorry about that, guys. 1 second.
CIO and the AFL against you. Now you got the CIO and the AFL against you.
Sorry, there we go. I had it on the wrong screen, so that's what I want to see.
So the AFL-CIO, which is because there was a big, huge merger back in, I don't know, was it like the 90s or something like that? They merged some.
You know more than I would.
Yeah,
sorry.
They merged a long time ago. Just like SAG and AFTRA merged, the Screen Actors Guild, and then the AFTRA. AFTRA is what radio hosts have.
And super chat whenever you're ready.
Oh, you got another super chat? Hit it. Who is it?
Margaret Sidu. We can get rid of fossil fuel pretty easily. Just use about 10% of our croplands to grow industrial hemp for oil. Interesting point, because we haven't actually we spent a long time kind of just not really looking into it, because I believe for them, I don't know if it was banned for people just did not look into it as much as they maybe will now. So that's a good point.
You know what, Margaret? Can you post a link to that? Before I just say yes, and I'm not being skeptical of you. I'm just one of those trust but verify, and let's talk about this, because yes, I mean, if we're growing crops just to pay farmers to dump them into the ocean in order to artificially inflate the cost of wheat, while simultaneously giving these mega farm corporations subsidies to make ethanol, I'm not convinced that there's not 10% of land somewhere that can be used to grow some better crop that will help alleviate that burden. And if hemp oil is that crop, then by all means, let's do it. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of alternative uses for hemp. I haven't heard that specific one about growing hemp oil in order for what was it again?
Fossil fuel, to replace fossil fuel for oil. Like traditional fossil fuels.
I've never seen a complete hemp oil burning car. I know there's my friend in the EAA was a Caltech grad.
Vegetable oil burning, you have to.
Yeah, he had a vegetable oil and biodiesel.
You have to be, right? You have to,
okay, yeah. Please send us a link to that. That's really interesting. We'd love to dive deeper into that. And this is one. By the way, one of the things I absolutely love about our live streams. Like, how freaking cool is that?
Yeah, get to learn, man.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So anyway, Andrew Yang's gonna have the AFL-CIO totally on his back.
Oh yeah, big time, man. He basically his platform is to remove federal jobs. That's basically his platform, which is tough.
Yeah, so it's like, dude, the UBI is the most wildly, like, progressives love it and then say it's totally progressive, but then libertarians love it and say it's totally libertarian.
I just want to shout out super chat. $2 super chat from Adrian Felicino. He says Lokhtar Ogar. So Lokhtar Ogar, right back at you, man.
Oh, you got to fill me in. Are you going to totally call me a boomer for not knowing what that is?
No, you get a pass on Lokhtar Ogar.
Okay, what's Lokhtar Ogar?
Orcs say it in World of Warcraft and the Warcraft game series.
Oh, rock on. Hey, I actually played the first
Actually,
Warcraft.
technically, it means victory or death, so.
Oh, no, I didn't play the first Warcraft. What was the video game that preceded it that came out back when I had a 386 with a coprocessor on it?
That probably would have been
StarCraft.
Yeah, StarCraft or Warcraft 2 about the same time.
Yeah, StarCraft was what we would play in the computer lab.
Yes,
and
computer lab gaming, man. That is old school. So that
it was way old school, man.
Makes you a boomer as well.
Actually, you want to know how totally old school I am when it comes to video games, bro? I had a really avant-garde teacher in my 5th grade called Dr. Degnan, who was an ex-Marine with this ponytail. He was bald, but he had a ponytail. And he'd sit back in this chair with these thick glasses on, and we didn't know if he was asleep or not. I swear, there were times where he took like 2-hour naps, okay? But then in the middle of it, he'd be like, "Hey, you, quit picking your nose. Hey, you, sit down over there." You know, and he never moved his head. So we didn't know if he was awake or he was asleep. But he was really avant-garde because with his own money, he bought 30 computers, and every student had a computer. And he posted his lesson plans for weeks ahead, and we could show up early to class at like 7 a.m. and do all of our reading, do all of our math, then work on the next day, then work on the next day. And if you got a month ahead, he allowed you to play video games during the day as long as they were his approved video games. So I ended up beating all of the where in the world, where in history, where in time, where in America, and where in Europe is Carmen Sandiego.
So you're a Carmen Sandiego expert.
Yeah. I remember even watching the TV show on Nickelodeon.
So do you know all the Carmen Sandiego lore then?
Oh, dude, it's been so long I couldn't even regurgitate it. But I was there for the first Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing release.
Mavis Beacon. Oh, hold on 1 second. Shout outs in chat to Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing real quick. Hey, that's why I typed good today. $2 super chat from Josh Ring. Permanent % of profits from big weed to fund reparations? ? That's actually...
You know, that's an awesome idea.
At multiple levels. It's interesting to me at multiple levels.
That so many people would call racist.
Well, no, because
so many people would label that as racist.
No, because the whole premise of it, though, is making up, because it comes from the premise that marijuana laws specific African-American community.
Yeah. The reason why I say that is because I actually watched a discussion forum in which somebody says, well, why don't we just legalize weed and then tax it in order to, pay for reparations? And then one of the African-American, not councilmen, but discussion leaders actually said, yeah, if that doesn't sound like a racist stereotype personified. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it depends. It depends on the angle. If the angle is just because people in general will buy it doesn't matter who, people are just going to buy it recreationally, and that will raise money, and this is a good use, that makes sense. If it's more of the, I don't know, I don't want to get too far into it.
This is good thinking that, yes, is an interesting idea. Good thinking that's an interesting idea. I completely feel fine saying that.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of things that really fascinated about me. One, though, because I always try to think, like, where could this go wrong? I don't know about the precedent of saying, like, having something people wanted to fund for a while. Like, how do we fund it quite? I have an idea. Why don't we legalize X and sin tax it? Because it just could snowball out of control. But that's that is worst case scenario. I think that fascinates me as a concept, but I think it's a cool idea actually. And then,
and this is, I don't want to.
Oh wow! 1 second though, before you do it, just super chat $2. Shanna Owens, I still own a Panasonic 3D. Oh wow, those are. Don't find very many of those. So
what's a
shout
Panasonic
outs to
3DO?
Panasonic 3DOs. Panasonic made a video game console called the 3DO. It was very bizarre, short-lived, and not successful.
Oh, is that like predating the NES?
No. I want to say late 90s 3DO.
What's so funny is I used to have an Atari. I used to play my dad's Atari.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was actually pretty old school and pretty awesome. But before I said I was going to totally date myself, Carmen Sandiego is actually modern compared to, drum roll please, Apple IIc Plus,
wow,
Oregon Trail.
Okay, Oregon Trail. Like
Oregon mother freaking Trail, man. I was there at Santa Clarita Elementary School, totally hitting that Oregon Trail twice a week, man.
Oh, listen to this. Stefan Lynn says, going to a Yang fundraiser next month. Do you have any questions for him?
Ooh, Stefan. Yeah, absolutely. Ask him what we just talked about how do you plan on conquering the AFL-CIO and what will be their massive
what's the plan?
Unemployment. How are you going to address the union thugs when they approach you at that first fundraiser saying, so do I understand the freedom dividend correctly is going to displace 300,000 bureaucrats in my union? Are you sure you want to do that? And I just, how are you going to answer that question? That's one of the number one impediments that I see to it. Second off is, actually no, we'll get back to you, Stefan. I'm going to give some well-measured words. I'll hopefully speak with some well-measured words there.
Please.
Okay. Anyway, let's keep going here.
Back to the climate policies. Worse than you think.
Yes,
correct?
exactly.
Cool. So anyway, can we move on past the budget overview? It's a lot of money, but it's over for a long period of time, and we'll get into how it's spent later.
4.87 trillion. Okay, so which one do you want to be on? Build to a sustainable economy, ending the influence of lobbyists and oil executives.
Let's just quickly run through this. I'll take it for a second. So here we go. Again, I like to go to the Ask President. I will. We'll have the link if you guys want to read all this. I'll put the link in right here. But I just want to see what is he actually going to do about it. He generally explains kind of what he's trying to solve there. So give me 1 second, guys. There's the link if you want to read along with us. He says that as president, I will ban anyone who serves in my administration from lobbying for a period of time after they leave their position. Fine with that. This is for ending the influence of lobbyists and oil execs. Ensure representation of my government for workers who will be displaced by a shift to renewable energy.
Okay.
And a sustainable economy so that we are sure to find solutions that enhance their quality of life. Refuse to hire anyone who formerly worked as a lobbyist for oil, gas, or coal company or served in an executive capacity at one of those companies. And then pass a democracy dollars bill putting over $20 billion directly in the hands of the American people annually to support politicians they agree with and wash out the influence of lobbyists. Great point I thought that Andrew Yang actually brought up in the interview with Nerds for Yang is when he said, when you think about it, if you get 10,000 people together for a congressional race, suddenly you have like $1 million. So the democracy dollars really could be a way to make a small populace, if they pull their money together, have some financial sway. So that's what I think. I mean, a lot of this stuff, I think a lot of this is pretty bipartisan. Like, why don't we not have people lobby for Exxon, work in the government as like a clean energy consultant, and then go back to lobbying for Exxon? Like, that doesn't make sense. So I agree with that.
Yeah, they call it the revolving door. And I've actually talked to congressional candidates where these are great, good, and honorable men. Okay. But we are getting redistricted here in California. And I can think of at least 3 or 4 potential congressional candidates that are within striking distance of their opponents. And that I've encouraged to run, where I've said, look, you have the financial support, you have the intelligence, you're better than this corrupt guy that's been in office for 15 years, or this corrupt woman who's been in office for 2.
From a certain perspective, the corrupt guy who's been in office 15 years might be one of the best politicians on the planet. You know what I mean?
Ooh, no, that's true. And I'm not trying to get rid of the ones that have been there for a long time.
I think maybe we should. I'm just saying, from a certain perspective, if that's the plan, don't lose, that's what happens. When the game is don't lose, you get people who are there 15 years but are corrupt and inefficient. I apologize, but
yeah. So I'm going. No, it's fine. But I'm basically just speaking from the perspective of, I've talked to a lot of honorable men that I think would be better than their counterparts already in office, and all of them have said this. that hold like minor office, maybe in state assemblies, on city councils, on water boards, on school boards, so on and so forth. And they've all said, you want to know what? With the redistricting coming up, you don't get the lifetime pension of a congressman until you've been in office 3 consecutive times. So I don't want to just lose my private sector career to go serve my people in what may be a 1 or 2 election cycle before we redistrict in 2020 or in 2024, just to lose, especially if I'm not guaranteed a position on K Street, which is the notorious place where all of the lobbyists are in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, I look at this and I just think, you know what? We should make it so people are incentivized to serve. I hate to say it, but pay congressmen more, or else let them have that lifetime pension if they just make it in once, because then people won't fear public service. But also, don't make public service the stepping stone to millionaire status as a lobbyist. You know, so let's pay them on the congressional level more, so we don't actually need them to become corrupt afterwards, working, shall we say, like the Republican Buck McKeon for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at $50,000 a year for the largest civil rights violator I've ever seen in my life. You know what I'm saying? Now, I got respect for the guy. He left Congress, the second poorest congressman there, and was nothing but ethical while he was there. I just have such a moral problem with Saudi Arabia that has always rubbed me wrong. So anyway, keep going. We got a couple super chats. Hit us up.
We can get to a great ethical debate about the WWE in Saudi Arabia one day, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, okay.
Armando Arevalo. There we go. Maybe that's why all the corporate Dems hate Yang's UBI. They see they would have to fight the unions. They'd be the people who know the most, right? So they'd be able to say like, yikes, guys, maybe, and then so thanks, and then shout out Denver Macintosh, $20 donation. Thank you, man, very much. I enjoy your show, guys. Here's a tip for the information and good conversation. Also, I supported Bernie last election, but I can't pass up Andrew Yang. As someone pointed out, I've never heard anyone say, oh, you know, last election I supported X and Y, but now I support Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the diversity of this crowd is awesome. And you know what, Denver, I'm curious. Just in one sentence, say what attracted you to Bernie Sanders that made you support Bernie Sanders in 2016 over Hillary and Trump and Jill Stein and Roseanne Barr, or wait, who was the other one that was running? No, it wasn't Roseanne Barr. It was
Roseanne Barr.
Who was the one that was running?
Shout-outs to electing Roseanne Barr to political office.
Who ran on the green ticket? Was it Roseanne Barr?
It's not. You know what? If I'm wrong, let me know. How about while you're thinking, shout-outs, $5 super chat, Jacob Hoffner. Let's hit $1,000 in the name of the Freedom Dividend.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, man.
Yes, that would be great.
Someone just wrote public servants, LOL.
Public servants, LOL. So anyway, Denver Macintosh. Yeah, just tell us what attracted you to Bernie Sanders. Was it just temperament, personality? Was it actually a specific
Pre-sold
idea?
out Bernie's pretty cool before he sold out. I don't agree with him on everything, but there's a movement to pre-sold out Bernie. Now, post-sold out Bernie is harder to back. Pre-sold out Bernie is pretty cool.
I do have to say that, do you mean by sell out when he finally endorsed Hillary Clinton? Was that his moment when he sold out to you?
A lot of like Bernie Sanders was made out to be someone, like you always like to say, is like basically a communist. Like he's like a Marxist. Like Bernie Sanders in like 2015, 16 was no Marxist communist. He was radical, I guess, for a Democrat, and I didn't agree with a lot of stuff he said, like stuff that he still talks about today. I don't really understand, but for the most part, he kind of was just like a radical grassroots. You know, the government is anyone who hates the government, I can agree with on some level.
You know,
so but nowadays, when he opens his mouth and speaks too often, it could be Elizabeth Warren, it could be Joe Biden. Not always, they disagree, but you don't get that sense of like, this is a guy who's running as a Democrat but isn't a Democrat. I get a sense now of this is a guy who's a Democrat, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I never agreed with there was a lot that there was so much that I disagreed with on Bernie Sanders with, but he had a coolness to him. It was kind of like that crazy neighbor at the end of the street. You know what I'm saying? That's always fighting everything. This anti-establishment vibe that I actually really respected and almost could get behind. And then, you know, just when he did endorse Hillary after having ripped on her for 6 months, there was just kind of this, so you are a politician. You know what I'm saying? So you are a politician. And even that I can kind of respect to a certain extent, because you do have to play a game. You were elected to go get results. If we never compromised, America would be founded. We never would have gotten rid of slavery. We never would have passed amazing bits of legislation that mark us as wholly uniquely American if it weren't for compromise. But yeah, in that moment, there was kind of a letdown of just like, dang it, Bernie, you gave in. You gave in. But anyway.
Hey, speaking of the super chat, we'll take this one.
Will Yang investigate 9/11? If not, why not? Fred the Felon.
Super chat shout out.
Breaks the super chat barrier. Asking, will he investigate 9/11? What specifically, Fred? What specifically? The origins thereof, the actual incident, the falling of the towers, conspiracy theories related to it, the response to 9/11. When you mean investigate 9/11, just please let us know a little bit more in depth of what you're talking. But thanks for the super chat, my man. Can't wait until you're hauling a load out here to Los Angeles. We're going to get you on the show, brother.
Well, I wonder when the whatever, because there's obviously some classified documents. Everything has some classified documents. I wonder the year comes with they unseal. That'll be interesting. Because I imagine it's like 30, 40 years from now, and like randomly out of nowhere, it'll be like 70 years ago, 9/11. We think about it once a year, and then suddenly like we're releasing 9/11 documents. Like 9/11. Wait.
I was at BYU. One of the number one conspiracy theorists was actually a Mormon professor at BYU.
Ugh.
Who was
the jokes write themselves.
Was literally, I know, was straight up leading the charge on conspiracy theories of 9/11, like publishing books, blogging, vlogging. Apparently it became so bad that they actually had to let him go and kind of kick him out of his professorship because he just like would not stop. And there's no tenure at BYU. It's a private religious organization. They could get rid of whoever they want, you know? And apparently they put up with all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's fascinating. I didn't understand that. That's the way the school's set up. So
well, it's a private university. There's no tenure. Tenure is at public universities.
Oh, but still, you can say it's a private.
And apparently he was pretty beloved in what he taught. But like their biggest beef was he started weaving it into the curriculum where students were getting graded by the responses to it, instead of just keeping it. From what I understand, they actually handled it very well and very professionally. And there was a line that he did indeed cross. But I just remember I was there when the Twin Towers fell. That was actually my freshman year of college. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And my freshman year of college was 2001, brother.
You're a boomer. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, my freshman year of college, bro. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm not a boomer. I'm an elder millennial. Okay? I'm an elder millennial. Shout out to elder motherfucking millennials, Cody. All right?
Maybe there's two words for the same thing. I don't know.
Going back to Andrew Yang's sustainable economy. Okay? So we just finished ending the influence of lobbyists and oil executives, right?
Yeah, so I think we went over that pretty. I like those ideas. Again, like for implementation. To be frank, you don't get to decide how it's implemented 9 out of 10 times. You know what I mean? It ends up being decided by multiple people how it gets implemented. But as far as the spirit of this, I'm all for everything he talks about here. So you want to talk about the American scorecard?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just going to say my pander meter was off a little bit. I really didn't like how he said Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez introduced the Green New Deal. No, she didn't. Her campaign manager, the Justice Democrat, who would literally like to overhaul the U.S. economy, did.
Oh, my God.
Which accomplished exactly what it set out to achieve, sparking a national conversation. No, let me tell you, these Justice Democrats don't want to spark conversations. They want to freaking imprison conservatives and force them to work in this futuristic utopia based off of 1920s communism.
Sounds crazy. All right. That sounds crazy when you say it out loud. What? No, it's... Technically, it's correct.
I am Skip Bayless to your Shannon.
I guess, because technically, what he said was correct. You could, but the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaign released a bill, and it did spark a discussion. You can't say those things are false.
Okay, yes,
that's true. That's what happened.
Well, I'm just saying, to me, the pander meter was going off, and also ending of influence of lobbyists. The fact that he added oil executives, I don't think it's fair that executives of oil companies get unfairly vilified while executives of toy companies don't. When there's executives of oil companies that treat their employees much more fairly than the executives of the toy companies. I will take an ex-Exxon executive in terms of morality over an ex Toys R Us executive, especially with what Toys R Us did to their employees when they went bankrupt, any day of the week. So right now the left is loving to vilify oil money, which all it means is a donation from somebody who happens to work for an oil company. Okay, and that my pander meter was off on that one. But anyway, there's a super chat. Hit it, Cody.
Oh no, I want you to read that one, Carden.
What does your wife think?
Tyracha, $5 donation. Yes.
How humble you are, Carden. I'm ashamed. Tyracha.
Let's say, well, what's wrong with that?
My wife is beautiful. Actually, you're going to see her on the Thursday. She's actually going to start live streaming with us on Thursdays, so you'll be able to actually see yourself. She's a lovely woman who definitely, she's the yin to my yang, no pun intended, and she does very much keep me grounded, and she humbles me a lot. Actually, you would probably get along, and you would probably laugh if she puts me in my place very often. So you'll have a chance to see that live on air, and I hope it's just not too embarrassing on Thursday. So anyway, any of the influence of lobbyists and oil executives, the American scorecard. Yes. I don't think we're ever going to be able to get rid of, in the near future, GDP as it is modernly interpreted, because all the other countries are measuring it that way. And in order for us to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges in terms of what our economic output is, we're going to have to convert some of our economic analyses to the way other countries analyze it. Because whether we like it or not, that's the metric that has spread all over the world. It's just like outlets in your house. Whatever American appliances we have need to have the 2 or 3 prong outlet, just because that's the way American homes are built. And if you come over with a European outlet, you just can't plug it in with this crazy adapter, So we are going to have to continue using the term GDP. But internally, domestically, as a society, I love the American scorecard and this concept that man was not built to pay bills and die, and that there are other ways of measuring success. Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, not the current CEO, but the ex-CEO, I love his phrase where he said, not every decision is an economic decision. I love the executives at Chobani, where when they went public with their company, they gave 10% of the company's wealth to the employees, divided up about how many years they had been there, because not every decision is an economic one. I like the American scorecard because it changes the conversation of how we measure, the metric we use, how we measure a citizen, from uniquely the US dollar worth of its labor to other things. And Andrew Yang brings up a really good example of saying, my wife is perceived as having 0 GDP because she stays at home with my autistic son and my other son, raising 2 children, which is more than just a regular 8-hour-a-day job. She's working more than just 9 to 5. And it's her sacrifice at home that's allowing me to go out and run for president. What's the GDP of running for president and changing the conversation about the freedom dividend? 0? No, I don't believe that. Okay. So yeah, traditionally the economy has been measured by looking at the gross domestic product, which is GDP, or the stock market. Companies are measured by their profitability. There's plenty of other ways to measure a company's worth. As an employer, when you employ guys who've had a rough shot in life that maybe weren't able to get a job elsewhere, but they're able to get a job with you, you feel great. And that's a unique connection that is rich and is deep. When there's a young man who's about to get married and, how am I going to afford a house and how this, and you show him how he can get licensed, and you help him get his finances ordered because you've learned to love this young man and actually kind of mentor him in your life and get him to a point where he's making enough money where he can get married and buy a house for the first time. And then you actually go to the blessing of his child, or you go to the baptism of his child, or you meet his kid with his wife for the first time. That's a great thing that is a lot more demonstrative of the American scorecard than GDP. Do you get what I'm saying? So hit it, Cody.
This was a great question from Nexus Yang. He said, what is the free market value of the Virgin Mary when Jesus was born? Carton.
What is the free market value of the Virgin Mary when Jesus was born? She could have sold the rights to her appearances later on in the book. No, I just kidding. still had some scriptural appearances. She hadn't had the scene where she left him at the temple yet. Okay. That was a solid sequel. The script rights could have been sold. No, I'm just kidding.
A couple scenes left.
Very good point. That's a very, very, very good point. That's demonstrative of the need for something like the American Scorecard. I really like this. So anyway,
super chat.
Oh, super chat. Hit it.
You want to read it?
No, you read it.
Cool. Tyrell Knoll, $4, $5 super chat. What you want Bernie to do instead of giving endorsement to Hillary, endorse Trump or no one? In turn, what should Yang do if found in the same situation? I believe he's talking about 2016 when Bernie basically had the rug pulled out from under him and they stole the nomination from him. I believe it's you're referencing.
So Tyrell is his name, right?
Yeah, but he didn't have to endorse anyone.
Yeah, you know what, Tyrell? I just would have liked to see him maintain his independence. He's kind of like the Ron Paul of Democrats.
There's a look. I respect Hillary and what she's doing, but we disagree on so much. I can't give her my endorsement.
You can't say in 1 week she's the most corrupt example of the establishment that I fight against, and she's evil. But I endorse her for president of the United States of America.
But vote for her. Yeah.
But vote for her. I don't know.
It's tough though, right? It is that fine line between you don't want to just basically kind of crap all over the party you ran under.
That's why I think it's kind of funny. Make fun of Senator Cruz, who ripped on Donald Trump in 2016 instead of just saying, "Hey, yeah, he plays dirty and he made fun of my wife, but you know what? I made fun of his small hands."
Didn't he call him the Zodiac Killer? Didn't Trump call Ted Cruz the Zodiac Killer too?
No, he said that Ted Cruz's dad had participated somehow in the assassination of JFK.
There we go. Yeah, stuff like that. So, I mean, he said some pretty ridiculous stuff about him.
So it's like, I mean, but you can't. It's weird seeing, Ted Cruz out there saying, "No, now the president of the United States of America," and they're just giving his whole why he loves Donald Trump. It's weird to see a guy fanboying for Trump now that was absolutely ripping on him. And to be honest with you, that's something that I really like about Andrew Yang. He's maintained his ability to say, "Look, guys, y'all can squabble. Y'all can fight over scraps, or you can recognize this big meteor that's heading towards the earth, aka our economy, that's called automation, that's going to take away 40% of our jobs, and impact is in 10, 9, 8, 7. He's maintained himself, ironically, above the fray, which I really, really appreciate. So anyway, we got a Fred the Felon super chat we're going to get to, and then back to the American Scorecard. Fred the Felon. Obviously, there's more to 9/11 than the initial report. Can we get a real independent investigation from non-government agency for the next presidency? Well, any non-governmental agency is going to become a governmental agency, because if the government gives the money to fund it, then all of a sudden it becomes a governmental agency. All these third parties that are investigating the utility of carpool lanes, you'll notice though the data shows that they don't work, oftentimes they say the results are ambiguous or inconclusive, because they don't want to tell the government that funded them to say something that they couldn't say that something. So they say, "We don't know," instead. Okay. So a government funded study is almost and inherently going to be a government sponsored study, which kind of influences its result to a certain degree. However, I will tell you, Fred the Felon, I am a huge fan of declassification. Okay. And I think we should shorten the amount of time between the intervals in which things are declassified. And didn't Trump say if he got elected, he would declassify who shot JFK or the Area 51 stuff or whatever?
No, yeah. Trump said Area 51 and JFK. He'd release both those things. He didn't, but said he would.
Yeah. So anyway,
actually, some JFK documents came out, but I think it was just time passed.
Yeah. So anyway, I definitely think if you don't trust America, you won't give it information. But if you do trust America, you will give it information. And I don't like that so much information has to get FOIA'd out of the government. You don't do a lot to make the conspiracy theories go away if you constantly stonewall inquiry into things. So I have not found a particular 9/11 conspiracy theory that holds too much water for me. But I'll tell you, if you believe that, fine, declassify the stuff. Then guess what? The argument goes away and the people deserve to know. So I'm a huge fan of declassification of documents, Fred. Anyway, back to the American Scorecard. These measurements are imperfect at best, referring to GDP, and terrible at worst. The creator of the GDP stated when he came up with it that it doesn't reflect the full story, missing the value of raising children and ignoring actual well-being. And I like that the American scorecard actually says, you know, how do we measure well-being? Okay. And it's time to include environmental measurements into account when we measure the economy, including but not limited to environmental quality and sustainability, which I think is very true. I would prefer to live in a house that's valued at $500,000 but has zero environmental imprint than this mansion valued at $5 million that is just draining the local ecology of any kind of resources, right? Affordability of energy costs, yes. Dennis Prager, prominent radio host and very liberal, traditional conservative, says nobody cares how well the wealthy live as long as nobody cares how well those on the top live as long as those on the bottom live respectably. And I think the affordability of energy costs is part of, quote, living respectably. Childhood success rates? Yes, absolutely. No Child Left Behind Act was a disaster, but it did do a good job of dividing people up into smaller groups that needed to be assessed individually and making individualism a factor in how we rate the performance of children beyond that of just the aggregate mean of test scores. We got 2 super chats. Cody, hit me.
We did. Tyracha, $10, said, love you, Cardin. So thought you'd like that one.
Hey, thanks. By the way, are we pronouncing it right? Tyracha or Thyracha?
I believe he said it was Thai like the country.
Tyracha, okay.
And then Orbis Lopez, $5. It seems like Yang's campaign has been accelerating the last 2 weeks. Why do you think it's taking off? He has raised over $300,000 the last few days. So, Cardin, why do you think it's taking off?
You know what? I've noticed the exact same thing. Orbis Lopez it was, right?
Yes.
Orbis? Okay. Because our videos have been going up. Old videos we made that, you know, kind of just had leveled out at maybe like 3,000 views, 4,000 views, especially on proposals, the policy proposal videos that we did in the beginning 3 or 4 months ago, Cody, when we started diving into like his nuclear energy proposals, his gun control proposals, and we were on that quest. We still haven't finished yet. You know what I'm saying? Policy proposals that he had, those have received a spike in the past 3 weeks of viewership, which means people are really inquiring into who is this Andrew Yang guy and what are his ideas. And they're diving into the substance thereof more than just fanboying it because they like his personality. So I've noticed that exact same thing. Our video inquiries into his policies have been going up, which obviously means there must be more fervor. He's not going away. And oftentimes it's the candidates that don't go away that have that survivorship ability that end up winning the race. There's this great book by Malcolm Gladwell, a very liberal, very kind of cranial, kind of inquisitive and cerebral author for the New York Times named Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote a book called Tipping Point. And in the book Tipping Point, I believe he talks about the 10,000 hour rules. And then he also talks about grit, how all the CEOs, they said the number one quality that they see in success that all of these people had, it was his book Outliers, was grit. And so I think Andrew Yang's candidacy has that grit, that ability to overcome obstacles that are in the same obstacles in the way of Kirsten Gillibrand, the same obstacles in the way of Tulsi Gabbard, the same obstacles in the way of Klobuchar, but Andrew Yang is being resourceful enough and gritty enough to get over them. That's why I think his candidacy is succeeding and continuing to grow. Cody.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I got everything moved around.
Another super chat?
No, somebody had asked. Sorry, I was wondering if you happen to know. I'm looking right now. Somebody asked which live stream we did that had the poll on if you were libertarian or progressive or whatever.
Was that our first one?
I don't know. I'm trying to find the poll right now anyway, but I don't know. I was just wondering if you had
the straw poll, right?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, gosh.
I'm looking right now. I can find it, but I was just wondering if you had.
I'm actually kind of proud of us, Cody. We've made enough videos. We're starting to forget which one was the one. I mean, it used to be we're like, yeah, you remember the video 5 videos ago of like the 10 that we have? You know what I'm saying? We've actually gotten far enough where we're like, shoot, which video was that? So awesome. We're going to keep going with the American scorecard, childhood success rates. Yeah, well, how do you define success, Andrew Yang? I want to include this, but I want to know, well, what's childhood success rate? Graduating from high school, okay, that's a good idea. Graduating from college, I don't know if that's a good idea. That's not a child. I get that's an adult. But I guess I would like to have seen this rewritten as maybe like emotional intelligence. But I believe that's kind of what he's getting at when he says childhood success rates. Environment-related health outcomes, okay. I'd like to know just a little bit more in depth what that is. And quality of infrastructure. Yeah, what's really interesting about the quality of infrastructure bullet point is when they study people worldwide, they did an 88-country cross-cultural study. And if you've ever studied the realm of psychology, you know that a cross-cultural study means that they're basically asking everybody from every socioeconomic demographic, okay, as well as every age group and also different cultures. So it's not just a test that's biased towards American culture or biased towards Chinese culture or biased towards French or African culture, okay? In a cross-cultural survey, when asked what makes somebody proud to be an American or proud to be Chinese or French or African or whatever, okay? One of the number one things that was common in what made somebody prideful of their community was the quality of the infrastructure. So I think it's great that one of the top 5 things that Andrew Yang wants to put into the American scorecard is the quality of its infrastructure, not the quality of how much it makes. Because let's face it, you can have a $5 million acre of land that's making nothing but a bunch of tobacco cash crops that's not making all of the neighbors proud to live next to it. Or a cool, beautiful convention center with a playground and, you know, people can jog around it and through it in the mornings. And it's also got, you know, an area for people to meet and a center and yada, yada, this and that. And it makes the same $1 million per year, but I'd much rather live next to the community center / convention center than live next to the high GDP and high yield square acre of tobacco cash crops. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think that's a really good metric to add to the American scorecard. So every year during the State of the Union, I will report on these numbers.
Quickly, a couple super chats.
Ooh, hit it. Sorry.
Yeah, we have $5 super chat from Grant Barges saying part of the dividend funding comes from economic growth, but this is not a budgetable figure. It may run at a deficit. Has Yang talked about this? Interesting. And then Semper Mal is $5. The smartest thing Yang wants is to tie economic incentives to new measurements. He truly understands how to get corporations to do things. So, Cardin, what do you think?
Get those 2 back where I can see them. Okay, so Grant Barges, yes, your criticism,
true, right?
Criticism is actually basically just like a flaw in GDP. Okay, no, sorry. Part of the dividend funding comes from economic growth, but this is not a budgetable figure. It may run at a deficit. Has Yang talked about this? Okay. I haven't heard Yang specifically talk about this, but Trump did. Everybody said that Trump's budgets weren't doable because it projected growth they didn't think was possible because they hadn't seen it in the Obama years. Enter the Trump bump, enter the lowest unemployment we've had. We're actually getting that high percent of GDP.
What if that doesn't happen, though?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying when smart guys who've thought it out believe it's going to happen and it does, like Trump has actually kind of proved Andrew Yang's argument that you can put an idea forward that you know as a capitalist will create growth, okay, and then bank on that growth, and I will bank on it with you if I actually think you're smart enough. And when it comes to being able to project growth, everything Donald Trump projected in terms of the economics of things and the increase of GDP and the lowering of unemployment, whether the media likes it or not, it has come true, okay? And I am hopeful that everything that Andrew Yang suggests about his economic plan, including its necessity to rely upon economic growth, will also come true, okay? Looks like you found the straw poll.
I did, yeah. What was that all you had to say, though?
No, let's go to the second super chat. I just can't see it, though, because I'm relying on your my internet went down for a second on my laptop, so I'm relying on the screen.
Semper Malice said that the smartest thing Yang wants is to tie economic incentives to new measurements. He truly understands how to get corporations to do things.
Yes, and he's made some really, really good examples that just right now are not coming to my mind. But I do know what you're talking about, where he's talked about going into a board of directors and saying, hey, well, you know, if you guys can build this and increase this happiness index, you know, we'll give you some kind of tax benefit. And I've often said, why don't we figure a way to restructure tax in which also companies and executives have an opportunity to give their time instead of their money? What if Elon Musk, instead of paying $1 or $10 million in taxes, you know what I'm saying, which is just going to get wasted on a bureaucracy, or just, dumped into some welfare program where it goes all to the bureaucrats and not to the actual people that need the welfare, or just wasted on the bullet shell casings that get dumped off of the side of the aircraft carrier after practice by the Navy in the ocean, instead of just dumping his 10 million into subsidies of wheat that literally get dumped in the ocean. What if we said, instead of taxing you that 10 million, here's your chance, Elon. You can either pay us 10 million in cash, or you got to go teach a class on entrepreneurism and engineering at UCLA for 1 semester once a week. Like, how cool would that be if we changed the structure of not only how we pay our citizens to UBI, not only how we rate our economic growth with the American scorecard, but also how we tax our citizens, allowing us to tax time instead of just taxing financial wealth, so we could get Elon Musk's entrepreneurialism and imagination in the classroom in front of 300 students. Revolutionary idea, I know, but I think Andrew Yang would consider it, and I think it's a little bit along the lines of our friend who just super chatted us. So anyway, let's go back. Every year during the State of the Union, I will report these numbers, whether they improved, and what we're going to do to ensure improvement by the following year. I had a huge problem with this part. Andrew Yang didn't say he was going to do it on a PowerPoint presentation. Therefore, I was angered and incensed.
PowerPoint.
Yeah. Any of you guys that have not been to an Andrew Yang rally yet really have to go just to experience now the certain keywords that, when said by Andrew Yang, result in chants. I mean, you are amongst nerds for Yang. You are amongst super geeks for Yang. You are amongst techies. When a chant will break out of PowerPoint.
That was a great one. I thought that was a lot of fun, though. I love that one.
With the fervor of a NASCAR rally, you have people chanting PowerPoint. That's when you absolutely know you're amongst Yang gangers. That's the point where you're absolutely amongst Yang gangers. Anyway, keep going. Do you have anything to say before we go to a sustainable economy?
No, I thought that was pretty good coverage, man.
Okay, cool.
Wrapped it up, really. Nothing else.
You want to do a sustainable economy?
I'll cover this one real quickly for us.
Rock on.
So it says, I like to go down and say, here we go. As president, I will. So this is under the heading of a sustainable economy. End all fossil fuel subsidies and use that money for retraining programs and subsidies for low-income individuals to transition to sustainable energy sources. Stop all new leases for oil and gas companies on public lands and end any currently existing lease. Okay. Fight against any new pipeline or similar infrastructure, especially any that would cut across contested land. Probably a lot of them, right? I'm assuming. Create more aggressive clean power plant targets and end the grandfathering in of old plants that haven't been sufficiently upgraded to trigger NSR. Provide a $10 billion debt forgiveness fund for all rural co-ops that are relying on non-renewable sources who want to replace their plants with renewables and provide public financing options for rebuilding with sustainable energy. Commit to equipping and powering all federal buildings with American-made efficiency and clean energy technology. Work to create standards allowing common elements of systems, like batteries, to be easily replaced as the technology develops. Create a plan to recycle elements like batteries that become obsolete, and set sustainable infrastructure standards for all new buildings that are being rebuilt or upgraded, and all federal buildings. First thing that jumps out to me is the $10 billion debt forgiveness for rural co-ops. You asked about this earlier, Cardin.
Yeah.
That stood out to me. It's really interesting the way they wanted to go about it, is basically because they understand, like, we can't just say, well, you can't use this, oil to burn for this anymore. And like, well, how do I do what I do now? So I like the idea of the government recognizing that we can't just put, well, sorry, you don't have a farm anymore. It's better to say, here's some money, we'll subsidize you, and let's get you updated to our next, our plan moving forward. I like that.
Okay, cool. Should we go to the next one?
Just anything that jumps out to you on that one, really?
You're talking about a sustainable economy, energy.
Well, 'cause I was looking at this. We have a lot to go, and it's already getting pretty late here. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind doing like a Thursday. It could be the part 2 stream for this.
Yeah, dude, I'm totally down because this is huge.
Well, we want to make sure we get to everything. Tyracha, I appreciate your memory, Cody. Thank you very much, man. Just because we want to make sure we have time to breathe and all this. I don't want to feel like we're burning through it, and I have to imagine, at the very least, a lot of this stuff isn't going anywhere. So, like I said, the things I like about this is that once again, Andrew Yang seems to have this more, I guess, rational is the word for it. Just understanding of like,
I'm okay with that.
When you do something, there's a reaction to it, and you can't just ignore it and pretend it won't happen. You can't just say, we're going to get off fossil fuels. Like, that isn't going to, like, negatively impact other people's lives. Now, that isn't a reason for not moving off fossil fuels, but it's a reason for putting more effort into it than just we're getting rid of them tomorrow. It's, well, we have to set up something for these people, and they're negatively impacted, and I appreciate seeing that.
Yeah, so you want to end in 25 minutes at 8? Is that our out time? I couldn't remember what time we agreed upon.
Sure, that works for me. We can do that.
Because I do definitely want to get through the rest of these, and that's 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's like 11.
Best time
for our friends out there in Florida and other places. So anyway, and this kind of sentence really illustrates the things that I like about Andrew Yang. Direct federal action to promote renewables. Okay, now we've talked about what we want to restrict. Now let's talk about what we want to promote. Over the past 100 years, the federal government has done much to prop up the oil and gas industry. Early on, that was the right move. Thank you. Instead of getting dogmatic vilification of oil executives, oil companies, this and that, which I think is destructive because it tears at the social fabric of America, okay, and really off-puts people where the energy sector is a huge part of the local economy. I mean, you can't not tick off people in North Dakota, South Dakota, Kentucky, West Virginia, and places like that. Well, even in America, if you look at the 1939 picture of Huntington Beach, there was no pier, there was no city, there was nothing but miles and miles and miles of oil derricks. Los Angeles is an oil town. People forget this. We are an oil town.
Oil town.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you still go down to San Pedro. Largest oil refinery, I think, on the West Coast is literally right next to the ocean in San Pedro.
We drive past them just leaving our community here even.
Yeah, we leave them just go past them leaving our community here. And there's plenty of great, very environmentally conscious people and very environmentally conscious companies that work in the oil sector. People act like it's, this raging band of eco-terrorists, when in reality, it's people just trying to provide their town with energy. So anyway, over the past 100 years, the federal government has done much to prop up oil and gas industry. True, early on, that was the right move. Yes, I think early on that was the right move. Our industrializing nation needed cheap energy. Yes, at the time, oil was the cheap energy. Fossil fuels worked. And the long-term impacts of burning fossil fuels were unknown. Also true. We didn't know what coal ash was going to do. We didn't understand greenhouse gases, methane emissions, so on and so forth. We also had far less population. Okay, so giving energy to our entire population was less of an affair as it is now when you have these thriving, sprawling metropoli. Is that the plural of metropolises? Metropoli?
1 second before we move on.
Okay.
I have to give a shout out to a Deadshot. It says Cody, say my name. I'm your biggest fan. So shout out, man.
Deadshot. That's a sick name. So anyway, of course, that excuse went out the window 40 years ago when scientists were first informed the oil companies that emissions were a major contributor to climate change. I don't know if I would say that excuse went out the window 40 years ago because so much political garbage, such as Rachel Carson's The Silent Spring, were part of the initial environmentalism movement, along with beautiful, well-intentioned people and great forays into our knowledge. So I don't think it's fair to say that excuse went out the window 40 years ago. I'd say 20. So anyway, now that we all know the damage we're doing to the environment, we need to get our relationship with an industry that is, I cringe when I hear this, that has lied to the American people while knowingly poisoned the earth.
You can disagree with people and it's
yes,
okay,
there are individual executives who have done very bad things. I bristle as a liberal. This is the liberal half of me talking. I swear, I feel like you, Cody. You can't vilify an entire swath of people with a sentence like that. I'm a hypocrite.
In general, do your best to not vilify people, and you'd be surprised, man. In my opinion,
I'm a hypocrite. I fully say I'm a hypocrite, but I bristle at that sentence. It is clear now that executives for these companies knew of the damage they were doing and put short-term profits over the health of Americans and long-term prospects. It's unbelievable to say, but it's true. This is red meat for so many people, but I would not have stated it that way. But anyway, he does reference specific fossil fuel subsidies of $649 billion. And I got to tell you, some of these industries are so profitable, I wonder why are there? Like, why are there these subsidies when they could be put to such better use in these industries that are already so profitable that Alaska made a pipeline that gives a dividend of $2,000 a month. Not a month, sorry, a year to every one of its nearly 1 million civilians. Okay? I don't see the Alaskan pipeline asking for a dividend. Not a dividend, but asking for a subsidy.
Well, also, isn't it like, no offense to Alaska, but like kind of part bribe? Like, hey, come live in Alaska. Like it's not living in Alaska isn't like necessarily the rest of the continental United. I mean, I guess it is continental.
It's not an incentive. It's not an incentive enough to move there. It's really a dividend. The same argument you could make against the UBI, or sorry, the Alaskan dividend would be one you could make against the Freedom dividend or UBI, saying, well, wouldn't that all of a sudden just become an incentive to move to America?
No, because you don't just like. I can just move to the state of Alaska, I believe. I can't just move to America and become a citizen right away.
I could think of 13 million people that might disagree with that. You can receive all kinds of social services for free.
But you can't become a citizen and receive the Freedom dividend.
Well, you can. Yeah, you're right. Maybe not receive citizenship by crossing the border, but you can definitely receive social services.
Okay, but I can also just fly to Alaska. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, you probably can't. I probably can't just move to Alaska and get that money, right?
Yeah, all you have to do is establish residency, and I think that takes 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
So I can move there, establish residency, get paid, and then move back?
Yeah, you would just have to be paying taxes in Alaska now, and you would still get taxed from the state in which you earn the wages. So I don't think you would actually net a savings for your 6 weeks in Alaska, because California would rape you of so much of it. But yeah, that's a really good question. I'm sure there's somebody that's crunched those numbers. And I've got a family, we've got a set of family friends whose family is by Alaskan. The father's half, when they remarried, is all from Alaska, and they've done the trip. They've driven up the coast. They drive it, dude, all the way to straight up Alaska, like through Canada and stuff, man. It's freaking brutal. So anyway,
by the way, shout outs to Alaska, beautiful state. I've been there a couple times. Summertime, absolutely gorgeous. So shout outs to Alaska.
Really?
Yeah, I'm an Alaska fan.
Wow, that's cool. You've been to Alaska?
Yeah, Alaska in the summertime is beautiful, man. Very green, very just kind of green and forestry and lush. I mean, as you can imagine, it's just got water on it. Oh, Scott Gregg, $10 super chat. Talking for more than 2 hours. Impressive. Cody, have a Michelob on me. Thank you very much, Scott. Shout outs.
It's an expensive Michelob, Cody.
That's
What about my Panda Express? No, I'm just totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Thank you very much, my man. Thank you very much, Scott Gregg. So, in this part, I really do like that he got specific, especially about rural electrical cooperatives. Okay, rural communities need energy too. They're people too, and there's a lot of small municipalities with their own energy sector that are relying upon very old infrastructure, sometimes built as early as the 1930s by the Conservation Corps of Engineers. You got another one? Hit me with another one.
So 1 year residence you must establish in Alaska, according to our chat.
1 year residence. Okay.
So that makes more sense. So like, because I was saying, like, if you have to move somewhere for six weeks, like, you really can't.
You know what? Duh, you're right.
Vacation.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of Montana.
And then just
where all
leave.
the rich people go in order to establish residency so they don't have to pay the income tax.
Oh, cool. Taxes.
Saves them extra 14.3% off California income tax.
It's like
Montana.
Ireland, right?
Yes, you're right. Montana, Alaska, you can see why I confused them.
What?
But,
no, I can't.
Large swaths of massive amounts of land in which...
But they're not even close to each other.
No, but I'm saying, look at a picture of Montana.
Are there mountains in Montana?
No, I'm just saying there's like no people there and it's all wilderness.
But I thought Montana's flat.
Yeah, many parts of it are, but there's mountainous regions as well, especially along the edges of Idaho and stuff like that.
But Alaska's extraordinarily mountainous.
I'm pretty sure there's mountainous regions of Montana.
See, I'm not sure about that. I think Montana... Hey, you know what? Anyone in chat who knows more about the state of Montana than me and Carden, please let us know.
Yeah, because I had a roommate when I was at BYU from Montana, and he talked about hiking in the mountains. But gosh, who knows? Maybe it was crossing the
Someone
border into
said
Canada.
Montana's flat, lol. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well,
it's
no,
flat.
I know it's so flat, and like 90% of it that they got 80-mile-per-hour speed limits. Montana has the highest speed limits in the United States of America. Like, there's literally places where I think it's like 80 or 85 miles per hour. It's freaking awesome. But
someone just said Montana is hella mountains. So
yeah, I'm sure it's got to be in the park because, dude, it's massive. It goes
the Rocky Mountains go through Montana. That's hilarious. Okay, yeah, that shows me.
But that's on the west end, right?
I believe it.
Yeah.
To be frank, dude, I don't know that much about topographical maps of the United States. But
yeah, so anyway, I just want to go over this one detail that Andrew Yang gave. He said in 2015, the federal government spent more on direct and indirect fossil fuel subsidies than it did on the Pentagon, $649 billion to $599 billion respectively. These subsidies are yet another factor that obscures the true cost of fossil fuels. Also, our taxes in California obscure the true cost. I think we're paying now $1.27 per gallon just in taxes. You know, it's absolutely absurd. That money would be better spent on helping individuals transition to a sustainable economy, both the workers who work in these industries and the rest of us who rely on fossil fuels. And then he goes down and he says something really interesting about rural electrical co-ops. He says, many communities, especially rural electrical cooperatives, are currently using power from coal plants on which they owe billions of dollars. Yes, we have tons of infrastructure. Even here, when you drive up to the Bouquet Reservoir, you're looking at siphon systems that were built by the Conservation Corps of Engineers, plans made in the 30s, building executed in the 40s and 50s. I mean, these date back to really, really, really old infrastructural investments, like older than our grandparents. But anyway, he says many communities, especially rural electrical cooperatives, are currently using power from coal plants on which they owe billions of dollars. These communities want to shift energy sources towards renewables, but they can't afford to pay off their current debt. Yes, very true, which is estimated to be at least about $8.4 billion on the old plants and build new ones, especially as the relative cost of coal increases. And we will continue as we end subsidies. The U.S. government can forgive the debt for these co-ops that are looking to make a transition to renewable energy and provide different financing options to those cooperatives to get them to move over to renewable resources. So I look at this and I'm thinking, I really don't like the word debt forgiveness, how often it's thrown out by the U.S. government. Because, you know, I'm sorry, I paid off my student loans. I sacrificed for years to make double payments on my student loans in order to pay off that debt to my society.
Okay, what about a credit back then?
That said it will invest in me. And if somebody else is all of a sudden just given $50,000 of debt forgiveness, that really frustrates me because I'm like, why did I have to pay $50,000 after taxes, which is really $75,000 before taxes, just so that this chump who skipped half of his payments gets debt forgiveness? He didn't even study something worthwhile. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't bother you if you had to pay off $50,000 of student loan debt.
That's a perspective. Here's the other perspective. The other perspective is that there was some stuff that was done incorrectly when it came to the way that loans were kind of portrayed to young kids, and they were kind of swindled into taking loans they wouldn't have taken otherwise.
By leftists.
Who cares who did it?
Well, then the leftists can pay for the subsidies.
Oh my God! Really? Where do they hang out? Where's their headquarters? I guess we'll just go there and ask them. But seriously, man, think about it. Like, if that's the perspective, well, then it doesn't matter what they studied. They were lied to and sold a bill of goods, and that's what we're trying to correct.
Okay, I get that, and I would try to emotionally remove myself enough from the scenario.
I'm just saying another perspective, you know?
When I'm more elevated, I think like you, Cody. But in my lesser, more indulgent Cro-Magnon state, okay, I think this way emotionally, okay? Anyway, so all I was trying to say is I generally don't like a lot of the times where the word debt forgiveness is thrown out because I view it as ideological or pandering to get votes. However, in this case, because it's very specific and it's mentioning a specific desire to improve industry, I could get on board with it. And Andrew Yang said this really interesting. He introduced another scorecard, his own Yang doctrine for foreign intervention, and it had 3 prongs. He said, first, is there like are our interests at stake? Second, is there a credible threat and a specific commitment time frame, so we know exactly when we're going to get out and get in? And third, are our allies on board to go with us? So if all 3 of those criteria are met, I'm fine with intervention. Okay, for me, the Cardin doctrine on using debt forgiveness will be similar to Andrew Yang's. And one of them will be, is there a specific entry and exit point that is non-dogmatic and actually helps society as a whole? If so, yes. And I think a lot of these rural co-ops need to get revamped. And many of them are relying on infrastructure that they didn't build, that was built by everything from the bridges leading there by the Conservation Corps to just old power plants that were made during big federal programs when we were worried about fighting the Cold War and energy was part of the Cold War solution, when we were worried about fighting World War II and infrastructure. I mean, even the highway system, one of our biggest, most connected infrastructural plots, once every 8 miles has a 1 mile straightaway. You'll notice this nationwide. All of the highways that connect the world, I believe it was the Eisenhower administration that developed the interstate highway system. You'll notice there's places where all of a sudden it flattens out and it goes straight. And they did that because they wanted bombers to be able to have emergency landing strips. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's similar.
They killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only did they interconnect all of our states with the interstate highway system, but in interest of, quote, national security, they made sure there was a friggin' runway that bombers could take emergency landings on and takeoffs from.
Well, beyond that, if you want to receive federal funding for a freeway overpass, has to clear a certain height so they can move certain military vehicles through it if need be.
Oh, that's a cool one I didn't know either.
Yeah, a little tidbit.
So this is how you feel all the time. No, just back to that humility comment from our friend before with the super chat. Anyway, keep going.
Yes, we want to talk about.
Okay, so anyway,
we're winding down here in about 9 minutes.
Yeah, we basically can we can keep talking about this. Actually, no, we'll just say, as president, I will, because carbon fee and dividend. Oh my gosh, we did an entire video on this.
Yeah, but that's all that matters. What's he gonna do, right? There's problems, sure.
Yeah, so we'll start the next.
What are we gonna do about it, huh?
We'll start the next live stream about carbon fee and dividend. But anyway, I like how he says in regards to the direct action to promote renewables, the promotion of renewables. He says, as president, I will end all fossil fuel subsidies. Awesome. Okay. I want to make sure there's not unintended consequences of that are too reckless, but I'm liking the sounds of that. Okay. Stop all leases for oil and gas company on public lands. Not a good idea. And end any currently existing lease. When Barack Obama said the budget needs to be approached with a scalpel and not a sledgehammer, I really like that phrase. And I'm going to invoke Barack Obama on this one, that I don't think it's okay to say stop all new leases for oil and gas companies on public lands, because some of the, to me, that's more of a sledgehammer than a scalpel. I think there's much to be looked into there. And I'm okay with stopping some leases, especially if there's a reason why they need to get stopped, but I wouldn't necessarily say all on that. Fight against any new pipeline or similar infrastructure, especially at any that would cut across contested land. I don't know if this is just red meat for the Canadian pipeline that everybody protested for so long, but so many pipeline arguments are so convoluted and so political. Like, do you remember the one where there was a standoff with all of the American Indians? Yes. Your mic's off.
Yes, very recently I remember actually there was a... Well, hold on. Sorry. The reason Mike was off, though, once we wrap this up, a couple of viewers sent us some funny little stuff I thought it'd be fun to end the show with. I was listening to one.
Hit it. Yeah, I've been pontificating far too long.
Okay, so anyway, guys, to get the full, final, up-to-date answer on our view of Andrew Yang's policy change, holy cow, Andrew Yang's climate change policy. Couldn't get the words out. Come back on Thursday. We'll have that. What I wanted to end with was a couple things I thought were pretty funny. One of them, first one was sent by our friend Stefan Lin, and I don't know what you think about this card. I thought it was pretty humorous. It's kind of like this. I mean, this is just the reality of things. You know what I mean? How funny is that?
Gosh.
So I don't know if it's exactly China. It looks cool like it is in Asia, and you see women manufacturing Keep America.
Well, look at those
again.
characters on the banner in the background. I mean, where else could it be?
Well, I mean, it's in Asia. I don't know if it's China or wherever else. Could be China. I just don't know for sure. But either way, it's clearly not the United States of America. So that's really funny.
Oh, that is too
That made me laugh. And then there's a video one of our viewers sent us. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with him. I'll let you guys know after we watch it. But it's a very troubling video recently that came out about Andrew Yang. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but it's one of those things where, like, I don't know. It's kind of important, I think, for us to kind of pay attention to stuff like this and make sure we don't just, kind of put our head in the sand, right?
Okay,
So,
hit me.
Here we go.
I believe that we should destroy families and children and women, minorities, and that's something I can do, and I'll be very glad to do it as our president. I believe that.
So that was sent to us by Gift Shinobi. Thank you very much, man. I just thought that made me laugh a lot when I saw that, so I wanted to bring that up.
You know what's so crazy though is you could see the Adobe Premiere transition
there.
there.
That was confirmed China. So I'd say confirmed China for Trump and the flags are.
Okay. You could, as somebody who edits on Adobe Premiere, I've seen actually that really interesting transition where the Adobe algorithms will actually make the face meld from one word to another. You can see actually Gift Shinobi just did that there. But man, that was close. That was really close to being believable. And we are entering an era of deep fakes. Like we are totally entering an era of deep fakes. Yeah, and it's kind of scary.
There's still a little bit you could tell, right? But it is tough to fully tell.
Yeah, but it's a little bit. It's kind of like looking at an Apple IIc Plus screen, playing video games on my hacked TI-83 when I was in high school. You could tell that, oh yeah, we're still pretty far away from graphics and special effects being truly believable. Boom. Here in 2019, holy crap. You remember when they first made the faces on that Final Fantasy feature film? And it was kind of like...
Oh my God. Oh, don't tell me. What was the subtitle of that film?
I don't remember, but...
It wasn't Dirge of Cerberus. That was another one. What was it? Oh no, Spirits...
I don't remember, but I just remember the reviews of people saying,
The Spirits
wow.
Within. Final Fantasy Spirits Within. I'm going to roll with that. I was even right or wrong. Sorry that I had to...
But I just remember when you first saw that CGI,
it looked amazing. I'll bring
thinking,
it up and show you guys.
That looks amazing. Still not believable, but wow, that's close. And perfection is almost coming. And then now we're getting celebrities showing up after they've died because we ended up... Did you get it?
That's it. Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. I knew it. But yeah, we'll go like this. This was cutting edge. And what year was this? This was
2001.
2001.
I mean, now if they wanted to pull this off and make a feature film out of it, it would be like...
Hold on. Sorry, guys.
Full bore, dude.
Sorry, guys. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with this was 2001 animation. That was This was, wow, can animation get any better? It's so lifelike in 2001.
Yeah, it was...
Because the hair moved.
Well, even, I remember when Guitar Hero came out. I actually dated a girl that was knobbed up, put those little balls on her in the green screen uniform to be
motion
the girl.
Capture.
That was, the motion capture, the model that was the motion capture for the female vocalist on Guitar Hero. And it's kind of interesting. You're like, oh, wow, they're doing really well human motions in this video game. Instead of looking very rigid and robotic, they're actually starting to get the bounce and the roll because of motion capture. And though it doesn't look completely believable because the characters themselves are too stocky, holy smoke, we are getting close. So yeah, when it comes to entering the era of deepfakes, I am totally with Andrew Yang. We got to reassess how we measure what is truth and whose information is whose and what is considered digital privacy, because the era of deepfakes is coming and it will be both simultaneously glorious and terrifying at the same time. So we got 3 more minutes here, bro. What are we going to do in the last 3 minutes here? Any last super chats? Any last questions? Anything else you want us to know? Just hit us up right now.
Yes. Cue RTX movies in the coming years. Good point, man. There's stuff. By the way, shout out to everyone who got it with Spirits Within as well. That was.
Hey, what's Q RTX movies? What's RTX?
RTX.
Am I super boomer right now?
No, that's like cutting edge computer graphics stuff. Not cutting edge, but for consumers it is. RTX, I believe I don't know what it stands for. I know. I believe it refers to ray tracing. Basically, it techno jargon. It looks really good. It looks really good. They can do a lot of good stuff with it. People who know more than me can give me a much better explanation, but it looks considerably better. I do need one, by the way, yes. So if anybody happens to have an extra RTX, like 2080 or whatever, sitting around, I'll take it.
Interesting. Okay.
I remember seeing Madden on PS1 and was like, oh my God, it looks surreal. It's a good point. Yeah, it was. So it is ray tracing. Good. That's what I thought. I just always get nervous. I'm like, oh no, I sound like an idiot. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, Gray J just brought up the best point. He said deep fakes. Biden is the candidate. If he isn't, I'll be shocked. The left won't let you guys in. Oh shoot, I thought Gray was saying something else. I was just thinking, how hilarious would a compilation deep fake video be of Joe Biden's gaffes? I mean, just the compilation videos are hilarious, but if you could actually
make 'em
CGI,
worse?
oh man, Joe Biden would be hilarious deep fake. Just hilarious deep fake material. I would absolutely love to see that. So anyway, got another super chat right here. Art Science Wonder. Why do you think Silent Spring is BS, Cardin? Oh gosh. Art Science Wonder. Really fast. Chat me back. Have you read The Silent Spring? Okay. One of the first things I do before I ever engage in discussion with somebody about Darwin's The Evolution of Species, Machiavelli's The Prince, Rachel Carson, The Silent Spring, the Bible, before I argue about these books, I want to know, have you actually read it? Because there's a great article by Reason.com in which it says The Silent Spring, the book that killed 23 million people. Because unfortunately it resulted in the absolute disinformation about DDT. Okay, pure, unadulterated, non-scientific, pseudoscientific dogma, like a false religion against DDT. DDT cured malaria in the South.
No, she said she had not read it, and it's why she asked.
Oh, she had not read it. That's why she asked. Okay, why do you think Silent Spring is BS, Cardin? Okay. Basically what happened is there was a lot of corruption in the early days of the environmentalist movement. There was a lot of people that didn't think the Clean Air Act would actually pass. And so they funded a lot of scientific studies that were meant to give scientific results about certain chemicals that they wanted to vilify, DDT being one of them. Akin to, and much like the cigarette companies that for 20 years in my childhood kept on funding scientific studies that showed that cigarettes don't really cause emphysema. Well, what do you know? When large corporations and large organizations fund science, that science oftentimes serves them with the taglines, log lines, and results that they scientifically were looking for, okay? And what happened was Rachel Carson had surmised that DDT was causing all of these environmental problems, that it wasn't, all of these human problems, that it wasn't, and it was outlawed as a carcinogen, which it is not. Nobody has ever died of cancer caused by DDT. Though we used to dust soldiers in World War I and throughout World War II with it. Though we cured malaria in the South here because of it. Read Mark Twain. Mothers worried about their children getting polio and dying. Mothers worried about their children getting malaria and dying. We cured all of this here just in time to get on our high horses and say, well, if Rachel Carson says it's bad. It's like when Kim Kardashian says something's not cool. Like if Kim Kardashian actually came out and just said miniskirts are no longer cool, you all of a sudden would see nothing but eBay and Goodwill stores full of women who just refuse to wear their miniskirts because Kim Kardashian didn't say it's cool anymore. That's exactly what happened when Rachel Carson wrote The Silent Spring. DDT was vilified. A lot of environmental untruths were established, okay, that resulted in a lot of very crappy legislation that led to the deaths of millions of people. One of them was that we outlawed DDT internationally. And India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, a lot of these countries that had huge problems with malaria, Africa, were not allowed to use it in a responsible manner. Instead of, taxing it or regulating it, we straight up banned it because that's what Rachel Carson said. And she's the rock star. Okay. And by banning it, we made it so literally millions of people died internationally of malaria. I mean, Rachel Carson's book and the dogma behind her book has caused millions of deaths worldwide. And if you're a liberal person, you shouldn't be okay with that. And you start realizing, just like Andrew Yang is realizing, holy crap, yeah, these media conglomerates, they are corrupt. You start realizing that, oh yeah, holy crap, there's a lot of people with political agendas that are manipulating environmentalism in order to get their agenda and not actually discover what the true science is. So you should read a Reason article called Rachel Carson's...
Or read the book, right?
Or read the book, yeah. I bought mine on eBay for like $3. I bought an original. I actually have one of the first edition prints of Rachel Carson's The Silent Spring. I mean, there was even this one moment where she vilified DDT, saying that it'll peel your skin off. And she actually made reference to an industrial accident in which an emulsified version of DDT was spilled on this man who tried to wash it off with water. Well, as all of us know, an oil-based emulsifier, okay, is going to take your skin off, not the DDT. And if you try and wash it with water, you're just going to spread it. That's not DDT's fault. That's the industrial accident and the emulsifier's fault. So without getting into the weeds of chemicals here, It's well-intentioned at best.
How about this? Would you like to get to our last super
Politically
chat?
motivated at worst. Yes, get to our last super chat.
So the Eric S. $5. I wish Yang had added cellular agriculture to his plan. Its impact would be comparable to clean energy, but huge resistance from big agriculture.
Okay, sorry.
Interesting.
I just got to it. I wish Andrew Yang had added cellular agriculture to his plan. Its impact would be comparable to clean energy, but huge resistance from big ag. Cellular agriculture. Okay. Cody, your opinions.
Give me 1 second to just pull up exactly what cellular agriculture is again.
Gosh, do we even have enough time? I would almost say
Hold on a second.
I would like to see Eric S. why you I mean, I can see why Big Ag would resist it.
Wow, hold on 1 second. 1 second. I don't know a whole lot about this. I thought it was something different, but Cardin, here's what it is.
No, he doesn't mean like cellular phone agriculture.
I knew that. Cellular agriculture focuses on the production of agricultural products from cell cultures using a combination of biotechnology, tissue engineering, molecular biology, and synthetic biology to create and design new methods of producing proteins, fats, and tissues that would otherwise come from traditional agriculture. So it seems like making artificial milk, meat, and egg products in a cell culture.
Yeah, I was actually Eric S.
Fascinating, really. Honestly, that stuff fascinates me.
No, you need to watch a video about the artificial meats that they're making now. When he's talking about cellular agriculture, there's people that, for example, have tried to mock eggs. Okay. An egg is a single cell, and so they've tried to mock egg material. And there's people that have succeeded in making artificial bovine meat, actually growing in a petri dish, beef. Okay. Now, yes, there is big resistance from big ag. He's right. Big agriculture, the guys that actually are farming cows, don't want you making fake cow meat, especially if it's economically competitive with their business, so they're going to fight against it. But what's interesting is artificial meat right now is getting vilified in the same way artificial ice was vilified at the turn of the century.
I do think, the way I understand it, cellular agriculture would not be like the Beyond Burger. It'd be like something different.
No, because Beyond Burger's like soy and everything. No, this is actual meat.
Yeah, they grow.
Like,
yeah.
Can you just
Precisely.
Google on YouTube really fast and see if it comes up? It's worth just showing like a 30-second segment.
Hold on. While I'm pulling it up, we do have to get it. Sorry guys, we do have to run. But we have one more super chat from Nate Johnson.
Okay.
Read that while I am pulling up the video you wanted.
How did you two meet? It was on Grindr. And how did you decide to make the show? Cody's scowling. Excuse me. How did you two meet, and how did you two decide to make the show? Really good question. I actually had a terrestrial radio program, meaning traditionally FCC broadcast radio program on FM 98.1, and we still have it. And he was my board op, and I was the host, and I had another co-host as well named Mark Murphy. And we actually, both of us being more technologically advanced, slightly frustrated with the restrictions of broadcast radio, said, you know what, we need to start a podcast. So we invested in, both of us, a lot of time and energy over a 2 or 3 month period, building the studio, putting all of our blood, sweat, and tears and extra time and energy and money into this, hence the birth of Problem Solver Politics. So that's how we met. Anyway, back to the cellular big ag thing, because this is intriguing science to me. At the turn of the century, okay, they had started figuring out, a printer had figured out how to develop air conditioning because he wanted to cool the room in which the ink was drying. Not cool it, he actually wanted to dehumidify it. And he found out at the same process of dehumidifying the room so that the pages wouldn't wrinkle also made it cooler, and the people wanted to take their break inside of the dehumidified room. Accidentally inventing air conditioning. Air conditioning gets so good that now we can freeze objects. And last century, some of the biggest people who fought against air conditioning and artificial ice, like the ice cubes that we all put inside of our of our drinks.
Hold on, you have to give it better.
What?
You have to be more clear with artificial ice. Sorry, someone just put like artificial ice is made in a freezer. It's not harvested from nature. It's like,
well, no, exactly. There were ice companies up in the Great Lakes that would harvest ice. Like, you know, the opening song of Frozen, those guys that are cutting the ice blocks. That was a huge, massive industry.
Hold on 1 second, though. So when I put water into an ice tray and put it in my freezer, I'm creating artificial ice?
Yes, that was like, this sounds so crazy to people like us right now. And this is why Eric S., he's probably like clapping his hands right now. I hope you are at least, and that I'm representing your argument. But this is why Big Ag is, and I want you to pull up this video of the harvested, don't just laugh at this, dog.
It's someone in chats.
No, you guys have to understand this. Eric S. is totally...
Like, the fuck? That's ice, dude.
Yes, no, we know that is ice now, but you have to understand, when they first invented freezers, the guys whose businesses was to go up to the Great Lakes and harvest chunks of ice so we could put it in the ice boxes to refrigerate our meat, their industry was threatened. And they literally would pass out these flyers that said, artificial ice is unsafe. It's not real. It's not natural. You and I, we're all fine with ice cubes because we recognize it's literally just frozen water. But there was massive disinformation campaigns put out by the large ice harvesting corporations out there in the Great Lakes that literally talked about how artificial ice is not safe. Well, enter... cellular agriculture, where they take a little bit of this protein and they feed it the right amino acids and the right protein, and the right nutrients and everything, and it grows into be proteins. You can actually buy a steak, a straight up steak that is like a test tube baby is to this steak. You know, like it's literally grown in a petri dish. Okay, didn't come off a cow. It's cellularly grown steak. And there's people that are vilifying this crap in Big Ag saying, oh, but it's not real. Well, and it's the same as ice cubes when they invented refrigeration. All right. Do you all see where I'm going with this?
You are right. To people like us, it is such a goofy concept. Like someone said, like, it's just ice. What do you mean? But all right. So anyway, we had a lot of fun tonight. Thank you, everyone who stopped by and hung out with us. Karn, is there anything you want to say?
You got to look up this ice thing, man. I'm telling you. Did you find the video?
No, I know what video it is. I just know you are very passionate about artificial ice, man. I've never seen you this worked up about anything except artificial ice.
You know what, dude? Yeah, fine. I'm doing one image search before we go to see if there's an anti-artificial ice pamphlet. And, I'm not seeing it, but I'm going to find this video. You know what? We're going to link to it in Twitter.
Exactly.
In fact, we'll end this way. This is a segue to the ending. If you guys don't follow us on Twitter, please check us out. We announce when we're going to be doing a lot of our live streams. We announce the events. We're actually going to be this Monday down in Santa Monica. Cody is going to post the Eventbrite link. We're actually going to be with the Los Angeles Yang Gang, probably going to do a little bit of a broadcast there, or at least make some videos and do some man on the street videos and so on and so forth. We'll be hanging out with the LA Yang Gang, so you guys can stop by and check us out and meet us if you want to. There's also a couple of fundraisers coming up in Los Angeles that we'll post the leaks to in the event. If you haven't subscribed to us followed us on Twitter yet, make sure you check us out at PSP Radio 1. We announce a lot of topics we're going to discuss. We announce a lot of our videos. We also announce when we're going to do impromptu live streams about relevant topics when they come up. So follow us at PSP Radio 1 on Twitter. If you guys haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please subscribe. If you got any last super chats you want to throw us right now, make sure you super chat us. We got like 30 seconds left. And if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, like the channel yet, make sure you like this video and also share it with your friends. The Google algorithms deprioritize a lot right now independent political talk. So make sure that you guys share this as much as you can. If you like Yang, you should like Problem Solver Politics.
One more great point. Killer J says, automation hit the ice industry first.
Automation hit the ice industry first. Chris Flores said, Cardin, let it go. I will not let artificial ice go. So anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Share this video with your friends. If you haven't subscribed, please make sure you subscribe. This is Problem Solver Politics. See you guys in the next video.